Chapter 409. The demon race is here? Feng Jixing frowned, as expected. As he said this, he turned around and cupped his fists. Your Highness, please allow me to lead the Imperial Guards to defend against the enemy. Yes, I will go after you. Qin Yin nodded. Su Muyun hurriedly said, Your Highness, you must not do this. The demon race is ferocious, and the throwing strength of the armor demons is very strong. Many outstanding generals of the Empire have died under the throwing of the armor demons' weapons. I hope that Your Highness can put the country first. Grandfather, don't worry. Qin Yin stood up and opened her palm. A god-binding chain turned into a golden dragon constellation and hovered around her palm. She smiled and said, Under Chu's guidance, Xiao Yin can already perfectly fuse the god-binding chain with the dragon slayer skill. I really want to see how powerful these demon race are. Su'er nodded and said, Father, don't worry. Xiao Yin knows what she is doing. Moreover, as the Empress, it is also a great encouragement to the army if she comes to the fortress. Su Muyun could only agree and said, Send the heavy armor battalion to protect Your Highness. On top of the fortress, rows of arrow boxes and crossbow carts had been prepared. In terms of the ability to defend the fortress, the human race was definitely far better than the demon race. This was also the reason why Lin Muyu had taken 3 consecutive passes. Qin Yin was wearing a deep purple robe with gold embroidery. Under the protection of Feng Jixing, Chu and the others, she came to the city wall. Looking from afar, the Lingnan mountain range was filled with densely packed armor demons. The black shadows connected together like a sea of black ladybugs. The demon race's attack had never been orderly, but it had always been very fierce. Qin Yin squinted her beautiful eyes and said, Armor demon army, Xianxia said. Long Qianlin's 50,000 dragon riders suffered a crushing defeat a few days after the decisive battle with the armor demon legion in the Lingnan. The Iron Chain Formation was countered by the armor demon Marshal Lei Chang's Iron Chain Formation. Nearly half of the elite forces of the 100 Mountain City were killed. Now, the Iha country has suffered a great loss of strength. It will be very difficult for them to recover in a year or two. Therefore, Lei Chong must be planning to break the defensive forces of the Empire from the Qinling Mountains while attacking the Lingnan, destroying the Empire and the Iha country in one go. Lei Chong has a big appetite. Isn't he afraid of being stuffed? Qin Yin smiled. Xianxia also smiled and said, Your Highness, most parts of Qinling Mountains are natural strongholds. The passable roads have also been built with city passes. Armor demons are not good at climbing. Between Tsangnan Province and Earthstar Province is a boundless deep forest, where tens of thousands of years-old spirit beasts roam. Human armies are not willing to pass through there, so the armor demon army is not willing to face the tens of thousands of years-old spirit beasts. As long as we guard the pass, we can guarantee that nothing will go wrong. Qin Yin nodded. Yes, Marquis Pingnan's words are reasonable. At this time, there were already armor demons approaching the shooting range. One by one, the ballista began to shoot. Although the accuracy was not high, as long as it hit the target, it could penetrate the body of the armor demons. For a moment, the mountain range was filled with the miserable howls of the armor demons and the loud sound of the ballista hitting the rocks. The Imperial soldiers on the city also changed to bows and arrows and began to shoot those approaching armor demons at close range. Something's not right. Feng Jixing frowned and said, Your Highness, look, what is that? Everyone looked over and found that on the road in front of the city pass, a group of armor demons were pushing several huge chariots to the city pass. Feng Shi narrowed his eyes and said in amazement, Siege ladders? Xianxia was stunned. Armor demons are extremely stupid. How can there be such ladders? Feng Jixing said, It seems that Qianfeng has enslaved a large number of human craftsmen to make siege equipment. Look over there, it seems that they also have catapults. This is bad. Xianxia said with a frown, If we let their siege ladders get close to the city, a large number of armor demons will rush up and no one will be able to stop them. Don't worry, they won't be able to get close. Qin Yin smiled slightly, and beside her, Chu also seemed to have a card up his sleeve. Xiao Yin, Why don't you try the power of the second layer of the Dragon Slayer incantation? Chu Chu said with a smile. Yes, teacher. Qin Yin let out a soft cry, and suddenly the fighting energy around her began to revolve, forcibly pushing away the guards who were protecting her. Then, golden god-binding chains began to dance wildly, transforming into illusory dragon-shaped dragons that hovered above Qin Yin's head, gently swaying along with Qin Yin's palm. Finally, when the power was gathered to the extreme, Qin Yin suddenly waved her palm forward, and the combined power of the Dragon Slayer incantation and god-binding chains flew out. Boom! There was a sudden explosion in the distance, and a huge siege ladder was directly turned into powder. Even the power of the god-binding chains gave rise to a small mushroom cloud. Heavens! Xiangyu was dumbfounded, and the group of generals were also dumbfounded. Everyone knew that the Qin family's god-binding chains were powerful, but no one knew that the god-binding chains would be this powerful after being cultivated. Moreover, this was only the second layer of the Dragon Slayer incantation. How powerful would it be if it was cultivated to the later stages? Feng Jixing reached out to support his chin, which had almost dropped, and said, "It seems that in the future, the guards responsible for protecting your highness can be reduced by about half. Your highness' strength. I'm afraid that ordinary people won't be able to get close to you." Qin Yin faintly smiled. I also didn't think that the Dragon Slayer incantation would be so powerful. This is all thanks to Chu Chu's teachings. Chu Chu lightly stroked his white beard, and said with a smile, "The Dragon Slayer incantation has a total of 7 layers, and I've successfully cultivated them all. However, when I use my fire cauldron to display the Dragon Slayer incantation, its power is far inferior to the power of your highness god-binding chains. Speaking of which, I created this Dragon Slayer incantation especially for your highness. Your highness bloodline is pure, the purest of the Qin imperial family's bloodline. With the addition of the god-binding chains, cultivating the Dragon Slayer incantation will naturally be twice the result with half the effort. The destructive power of this coiling dragon strike is indeed a bit frightening." However, after using the coiling dragon strike, Qin Yin's face was a bit pale. It was obvious that this move consumed a lot of battle chi. "Careful, the armor demons are throwing their weapons." Feng Jixing suddenly leaped up and waved his wind cutter in the air. With a dang sound, he blocked a spear thrown by an armor demon. However, the armor demons about 100 meters away from the city all followed suit and threw their weapons. For a moment, the city was filled with wails as many Imperial Army soldiers were shot to death by those blunt weapons. Buzz! A battle axe spun in the air, heading straight for Qin Yin. "Your Highness, be careful." Xiangyu hurriedly circulated his chaotic force. "Marquis Pingnan, don't worry." Qin Yin smiled faintly, and the divine power of the god-binding chains was once again produced in her body. The 3 god-binding chains danced rapidly like the shadow of a dragon, suddenly transforming into a crystal shield in front of Qin Yin. Bang! The energy burst out, but Qin Yin was unharmed, while the battle axe quickly rebounded and fell down the city. Qin Yin leisurely waved her hand, and the crystal shield seeped into her body, once again transforming into the divine power of the god-binding chains. She smiled and said, "The sacred dragon shield of the 3rd layer of the dragon-slaying art is indeed indestructible." Chu Chu smiled and said, "That's because your highness's power is very pure. However, your highness still needs to continue to diligently cultivate. The day that your highness successfully cultivates the 7 heavens of the dragon-slaying art, your highness should also be able to step into the saint domain. After stepping into the saint domain, your highness' beauty will remain forever, and your highness will always be as beautiful as you are now." Of course, Qin Yin's heart was moved. Her little face blushed, and she bit her red lips and said, "I will." Feng Jixing laughed mischievously at the side. He wiped the dust on the windcutter saber and said, "It's a pity that you didn't see this scene. Otherwise, he would definitely be very amazed by your highness's cultivation." Feng Shi smiled and said, "Yes." Qin Yin didn't say anything else. Her heart was beating wildly. Finally, one day, she could rely on her own strength to protect Lin Muyu. Wasn't this something that she had always dreamed of? The momentum of the armor demon's attack was very fierce, but the archers stationed at the Longdan army camp's gate were also very sharp. They shot down the armor demons one by one with white drill arrows. In the blink of an eye, the gate was already covered with armor demons' corpses. However, as time dragged on, the armor demons' war chariots and catapults approached one by one. When Qin Yin was about to use another coiling dragon strike, Chu Chu suddenly pressed on her shoulder and said, "Xiao Yin, let me do it." "Chu, be careful." "Don't worry." Chu Chu laughed loudly and leaped out of the city. His whole body was covered in flames, and the image of the awe-inspiring fire cauldron appeared around his body. He stood in the air and blasted out 5 palms in a row. The huge flaming palms lit up the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of explosions was endless. The siege ladders and catapults were all turned into powder. The fire burned wantonly and engulfed the surrounding armor demons. Was this the power of a Saint Realm Third Heaven expert? Feng Jixing, Xiang Yu, Qin Yan, and the others were dumbfounded. If a Saint Realm expert was already this powerful, then what about the God Realm expert? Everyone quickly thought of that terrifying Luolan. Yes, the difference between a god and a human was really too big. A God Realm First Heaven Lower God could already overturn rivers and seas in the human world, right? When Chu Chu flipped over and flew up the city with the help of the power of space, there was already a sea of fire behind him. Hundreds of armor demons were howling miserably in the flames, and the siege equipment that they had deliberately transported were all destroyed. Although the armor demon army was stupid, they would not court death. Knowing that they had lost, they did not forcefully attack. The sparse sound of drums sounded, and they retreated. The demon race has lost. Tang Lan looked into the distance with a pair of turbid eyes and said with a smile, "Congratulations, Your Highness. With this defeat, the demon race will most likely not attack Ink Pine Pass again." Xiang Yu cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, this subordinate must return to Cangnan as soon as possible. The demon race's tactic is to spread out their forces and attack all the human cities on the plains. This subordinate must go and defend the fortress." "And thank you, Marquis Pingnan." Qin Yi nodded. Xiang Yu turned around and led a group of subordinates away on horseback. Feng Jixing looked at the retreating armor demon army in the distance, wanting to say something, but hesitated. "General Feng, do you have something to say?" Chu Chu asked with a smile. Feng Jixing chuckled, touched his nose, and said, "Chu, can you teach me the Dragon Slayer art?" "Sure, 10,000 Jinin coins as a tuition fee. How about it? Do you want to learn?" "Deal." Feng Jixing clenched his fist, a look of determination on his face. Note: the Dragon Slayer art has a total of 7 moves: Reverse Dragon Spin, Coiling Dragon Strike, Sacred Dragon Shield, Golden Dragon Flame, Horned Dragon Bind, Azure Dragon Break, and Thousand Dragon Soar. Chapter 410. 7 days later, the devils withdrew from Mozong Pass and targeted Ding Shi's army in Xiang City to the south of the Steel Wall. Lin Muyu needed to recuperate, so Qin Yin ordered an army to stay behind to guard the Qinling Mountains. The Longdan army camp and the Imperial Guards returned to Lanyan City. At this point, the southern border of the Qin Empire was finally pacified. More than a dozen passes and fortresses in the Qinling Mountains fell into the hands of the Imperial Army to resist the Iha nation and the Devils. On December 21, 7734, the army returned to Lanyan City. The fierce battle was finally over. As the monarch, the first thing Qin Yin did was naturally to reward the soldiers. The next day was the court assembly, and all the officials gathered. Although Lin Muyu was wrapped in gauze, he still carefully put on his armor and walked to the court with his injuries. He knew very well that he had to support Qin Yin at this time. Otherwise, she would still be hindered by Tang Lan and Su Muyun in the court. Feng Jixing and Lin Muyu stood together and asked with concern, "How are your injuries?" "Much better. Don't worry." Lin Muyu grinned. "That's good." Feng Jixing said worriedly, You have to recover quickly. The devils have been restless recently. Our scouts in Winterfrost City have sent news that Qianfeng has been training the armor demons all day long. When we encounter the Qianfeng army again, I'm afraid they won't be as stupid as they were last time. Lin Muyu thought of Qianfeng, the marshal of the devils. Such an intelligent and courageous person was indeed a big threat to the empire. She only hated that she wasn't strong enough. Otherwise, she could directly sneak into Winterfrost City and kill Qianfeng with a sword. Then the empire would be much safer. At this time, an attendant shouted, "The court assembly begins." Everyone knelt on one knee to welcome the empress. Amidst the sound of footsteps, Qin Yin walked up to the throne accompanied by a few female officials. After she sat down gracefully, she raised her hand and said, "Sirs, please rise." Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing stood up together and looked up. They saw that Qin Yin was wearing a milky white robe today, which made her look even more graceful and elegant. Her beautiful face revealed a mature charm, but still retained a bit of shyness. However, at this moment, Qin Yin was no longer timid. Looking at the officials with her beautiful eyes, Qin Yin's voice was very sweet. She said clearly, "Since Commander Yu led the Longdan army camp to the south, she has made many military achievements. She took back the Black Pine Pass, Jiyuan Pass, and other fortresses from the devils. She even killed her way into the lost land of the empire in Lingnan and took back the Fiery Moon City, Xingjue City, and other cities in the Swift White Province. She has greatly boosted the military power of the empire." However, the greatest achievement of Commander Yu is that she pretended to surrender and sneaked into Xiang City. She took back the head of Qin Lei, the former commander of the Royal Guards, who died for the empire, from thousands of soldiers in Xiang City. I have decided to confer the title of first-rank general to Commander Yu, one of the 11 great generals of the empire. The officials were moved. They looked at each other, but no one seemed to be able to find a reason to object. The Tang family's generals had a grave expression and did not make a sound. This time, the empress had killed 4 Tang family's generals in a fit of anger because of Lin Muyu's matter. Furthermore, this included Tang Zhou, a close relative of Tang Lan. They dared to be angry but did not dare to say anything. Among the people, only Tang Lu was somewhat indignant. He said, "Your Highness, Commander Yu has indeed made great contributions, but he is still young. I'm afraid his qualifications are not enough to be one of the great generals of the empire at such a young age." Qualifications? Qin Yin smiled and said with great familiarity, "In Lingyun Pavilion, Xiang Wenyan became a marshal at the age of 21, Luo Tonghai became a general at the age of 24, Feng Yicheng became a general at the age of 27, and Commander Yu is already 26 years old. What's wrong with qualifications?" Someone read the letter from Lingnan's Iha country's rebels. "Yes, Your Highness." A female official dressed in green nodded respectfully. She took out a letter and opened it. Facing the officials, she read, "When Lin Muyu was seizing Commander Qin Lei's head at Marshal L.V. Zhao's residence, there was a chaotic battle. A total of more than 100 people died under his sword. Among them were L.V. Zhao, one of the 7 marshals of Lingnan's Iha country, General Zhao Jiao, General Li Sha, the commander of the Green Cavalry, Wang Biao, and the deputy commander of the Jingguojun, Dong Yan. In addition, Commander Yu also killed Luo Lan's subordinate, Saint Realm expert Yan Li, and severely injured Saint Realm expert Lu Zhan." When she finished, she turned around and bowed to Qin Yin before retreating. Qin Yin stood up with a smile on her beautiful face. She said, "Let me ask you, in the entire Qin Empire, which brave and loyal general could do such a thing?" Su Muyun took a deep breath, cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, Commander Yu's loyalty to the empire can be seen by the heavens and earth. In Lingnan, he can do what others can't and endure what others can't. His achievements are outstanding and can be said to be unprecedented. In the empire's hundreds of years, no one has made such a contribution. This old official thinks that Commander Yu's achievements are worthy of the title of Commander General. Moreover, there are 20,000 brave warriors in the Longdan army camp who are brave and good at fighting. They are the cream of the crop in the empire." Qin Yin was surprised. She didn't expect Su Muyun to rely on Lin Muyu so much today. She smiled and said, "Thank you for your approval, grandfather." Then, promoting Lin Muyu to general, "Do you have any objections?" Tang Lon cupped his fists and said, "This old official has no objections." Everyone in the Tang family cupped their fists and soon, everyone started to congratulate Lin Muyu. After all, such a young general was rare since ancient times. Moreover, Lin Muyu was also the great deacon of the empire's holy temple. She was practically doted on by Qin Yin. Immediately, Lin Muyu took a step forward and knelt on one knee. "Thank you, Your Highness." Qin Yin smiled and said, "Brother Yu, please get up." Lin Muyu nodded. Soon, two imperial female officials walked forward. One of them was holding the general's seal and ribbon, while the other was holding the general's sword. These were all symbols of military power and military rank. After receiving them one by one, Lin Muyu expressed her gratitude again. The second matter is about the reorganization of the royal guards and the reconstruction of the White Robes Imperial Guards. Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were like water as she looked at the officials and said, "According to the rules of the empire for more than 7,000 years, the important task of protecting the emperor has always been undertaken by the Imperial Guards. But now, the Imperial Guards are shouldering the responsibility. The Imperial Guard's job is to protect the imperial capital, not the emperor. So I think it is urgent to rebuild the Imperial Guards." The ministers were taken aback once more. Su Muyun frowned and cupped his fists. "Your Highness, the protection of the Zetian Palace has always been the responsibility of the Su family's cavalry led by your Aunt Luan. Don't you trust Aunt Luan?" Qin Yin smiled sweetly. "Grandfather, what are you talking about? Aunt Luan is Xiao Yin's relative. How can I not trust her? It's just that this is the rule left by the previous emperors. The emperor must personally confer the title of the White Robes Imperial Guards and establish the royal guards to protect the Zetian Palace. Just like grandfather and Duke Lan have always said, the ancestors' rule cannot be abolished. Duke Lan, what do you think?" Tang Lan's eyes lit up. He cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, rebuilding the royal guards is not a small matter. It needs to be done step by step. Let's start with the White Robes Imperial Guards. This old official suggests that Your Highness confer the title of White Robes Imperial Guards first, then build a team of 100 Imperial Guards. Finally, rebuild the Royal Guards. After all, the Empire's financial resources are limited. We can't be as extravagant as we were 4 years ago." Qin Yin pondered for a moment and said with a smile, "Duke Lan is right. Then, let's start with the conferment of the White Robes Imperial Guards." Su Muyun said respectfully, "Your Highness, according to the ancestors' rule, there have always been only 6 White Robes Imperial Guards. Now Chu Chu, Qin Lei, and Du Hai have all died for the empire. Only Feng Jixing, Chu Chu, and Yao Yuan are left. Therefore, we only need to add 3 more people. Does Your Highness already have a candidate in mind?" "Yes." Qin Yin smiled with her dimples and said, "Grandfather, I plan to confer the title of Commander Yu as one of the White Robes Imperial Guards." Su Muyun was slightly stunned. In fact, he had already expected this. He smiled helplessly and said, "That's true. Yu is Your Highness' sworn brother. Moreover, he has repeatedly risked his life to protect you. You becoming a White Robes Imperial Guard is something that everyone expects." Qin Yin smiled and said, "Thank you for your permission, grandfather." Tang Lan said, "This old official also believes that Commander Yu's promotion to the White Robes Imperial Guard is a matter of course. However, there are still 2 more people. I wonder if Your Highness has a candidate in mind. The White Robes Imperial Guards are a symbol of loyalty and strength. They symbolize the strongest martial force and the most loyal belief by the Emperor's side. I hope that Your Highness will think twice before making a decision." "Yes, I understand." Qin Yin nodded. "I wonder if Duke Lan has anyone to recommend?" Tang Lan smiled. "Xiang Yu, the descendant of the Empire's god of war, Xiang Wenin. He is well versed in the Chaos 9 Strikes martial art. He is even willing to charge and break through enemy lines for Your Highness, disregarding life and death. Immediately, a general with the surname Su behind Su Muyun couldn't help but laugh. Xiangyu? He killed 1.8 million people in the Five Valleys city with a single order. How can such a homicidal maniac be worthy of becoming a White Robe's Imperial Guard? Xiangyu's face was ashen. He said indifferently, "This general knows that I am lacking in talent and virtue. I hope that Duke Lan can recommend someone else." Tang Lan sighed. He looked at the group of people behind him, including Tang Lu, Tang Tian, and Tang Wei. He couldn't help but sigh again. Among the descendants of the Tang clan, only Tang Xiaoxi was the most capable. However, she didn't stand on his side. The other brave general was Tang Jin. However, Tang Jin was too upright. Therefore, he couldn't be used by Xiangyu. He looked like a mediocre person. At this time, Su Muyun cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, this old official recommends Suyu. She is your Aunt Lien. Her loyalty goes without saying. Moreover, she holds the military power of the 200,000 soldiers in Muyu City." Qin Yin looked at Suyu with her beautiful eyes. She smiled and asked, "Aunt Lien, are you willing?" Suyu was pleasantly surprised. Can I? Of course you can. Thank you, Your Highness." Suyu took a step forward and knelt on one knee. She said excitedly, "Thank you, Your Highness, for your grace. Suyu will forever be loyal to the Qin Empire. Otherwise, I will die by the sword." "Aunt Lien, please get up. You don't have to be so polite." Qin Yin was filled with joy. She said, "Then it's decided. Lin Muyu and Suyu will join the White Robe's Imperial Guard. Tomorrow, we will hold the conferring ceremony in Zetian Palace. After that, I will rebuild the Imperial Guard." Chapter 411. At night, the candlelight swayed gently. In the office of the temple's Grand Deacon, Lin Muyu took off her armor and changed her bandages. She held a scroll in her hands and started reading. Beside her, the two deacons, Gu Yang and Zhou Yao, were also helping to read through the scrolls. After Lin Muyu left, there seemed to be a lot of scrolls accumulated. "Don't move." Chu Yao's voice came from behind. She opened her snow-white fingers and a warm fighting aura seeped into Lin Muyu's wounds to speed up the recovery. The reason why Chu Yao could become the Grand Deacon of the Spirit Medicine Department was not just because she was proficient in alchemy, but also because her holy hand was one of the best in the world. "It itches, I can't help it," Lin Muyu explained. Chu Yao giggled. "You have to endure it even if you can't help it. AI, you stinking brat, I really don't know what to say about you. You broke into the marshal's residence of Iha country alone. Your courage is greater than the heavens, you really don't fear death." Lin Muyu rubbed her nose and said, "Sister Chu Yao, if you were a man, you would have done the same. I was only 50 miles away from Sunset City and knew that Brother Qin Lei's head was stored in a bottle in Sunset City. How could I not take the risk? In short, don't do it next time." Chu Yao gently patted his shoulder and said, "Your life does not belong to you alone. If you died, I would have lost my last family member." "I know." Lin Muyu lowered her head and said, "I won't do it next time." "And that's more like it." Chu Yao smiled. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door and a temple guard walked in and said respectfully, "Grand Deacon, there is someone from the Duke's residence of Sunset Rain City who wants to invite you to the Duke's residence. Duke Yun has something to discuss with you." "The Duke's residence of Sunset Rain City?" Lin Muyu was stunned. "What does Duke Yun want with me?" This subordinate does not know, he only said that he has something to discuss. "Oh," Gu Yang said at the side, Su Muyun has never been on good terms with you. If you want to go, then bring Qin Yen, Wei Chou, and the rest along. Otherwise, it's too dangerous." "Okay, got it." Lin Muyu raised her head and said, "Have Wei Chou and Qin Yen pick 100 people from the Longdan army camp and go with me." The Longdan army camp gathered very quickly. They quickly arrived at Tongtian Street from the camp behind the Divine Temple. Lin Muyu also put on the Imperial Guard's armor and rode takshu. She led everyone to follow the servant from the Duke's residence. Su Muyun's Duke's mansion was not too far away. This Duke's mansion was rebuilt 2 years ago. It was originally the mansion of a general. Later, during the Lanyan city chaos, the owner died in battle, so it became Su Muyun's duke's mansion. However, it was still very spacious and exquisite. Yo, there are so many people. In front of the mansion, Su Yu was guarding with a few generals of Muyu City. She could not help but laugh and said, You are too wary of our Su family. You brought so many soldiers from the Longdan army camp over as if you were going to fight. Don't be nervous. Father just asked you to come over to chat and drink tea. Lin Muyu flipped over and dismounted from the horse and said, It's really good to drink tea. And see, let's go in. But along the corridor all the way into the depths of the mansion, Wei Chou, Qin Yan, and the rest stayed in the courtyard to wait, while Lin Muyu followed Su Yu straight to Su Muyun's residence. Although Lin Muyu was injured, her strength had recovered at least 70%. With Su Yu and Su Muyun's strength, they were probably not a match for Lin Muyu. Creak. After the door was pushed open, the candlelight inside was still swaying. Su Yu walked in with Lin Muyu and called out softly, Father, Yu is here. Su Muyun turned around, holding an ancient scroll in his hand. Under the illumination of the candlelight, his face looked very old. His hair and beard were all white. This old man seemed to be full of fatigue, but reality did not allow him to rest for even a moment. May I know why Duke Yun is looking for me? Lin Muyu asked. Su Muyun smiled and said, Do you know why I did not object to you conferring the title of general during the day? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Su Muyun said, Because there are too few people who can be used by Xiao Yin's side, and there is almost no one among our Su family's generals who can take charge. As he spoke, he raised his hand and said, Sit down and talk. Thank you, Duke Yun. Lin Muyu untied the dragon spirit sword and placed it on the table beside her. She took the teacup that Su Er handed over and nodded with a smile. After Su Muyun sat down and took a sip of the tea, he carefully savored it and said, Tanglan is recruiting soldiers on a large scale within the Tsangnan province, and has already recruited about 100,000 new soldiers. Moreover, the Ministry of Revenue has allocated the iron mines, forests, and other resources within the Tsangnan province and Earthstar province to Tanglan. Even the control of more than a dozen counties in the North Ridge province has fallen into Tanglan's hands. If this continues, I'm afraid that the empire will be surnamed Tang and not Qin. Lin Muyu remained silent. Su Muyun continued, The former emperor sent Feng Jixing to assassinate my only son, Su Qin, causing the Su family to have no more descendants. Now that Xiao Yin is my only descendant, I must ensure her position as emperor and the stability of the empire. Therefore, I need a general who can take charge of the army of the Twilight Rain City. Lin Muyu put down the teacup and said, Duke Yun, if you have anything to say, please say it directly. Su Muyun smiled slightly. You, call Su Chang in. Yes. Su Yu opened the door and called softly, Su Chang, come in. Not long after, a young girl around the age of 18 walked in. She was wearing a long robe of the empire's maidens. She had a pretty face and somewhat resembled Su Yu. She smiled and gave Su Muyun a ladylike bow and asked, Grandpa, what's the matter? Su Muyun smiled faintly. Su Chang, do you know this general? Su Chang turned to look at Lin Muyu, shook her head, and said with a smile, I don't know him. Looking at his clothes, he is just a guard. Why would Grandpa drink tea with such a person? Su Muyun was startled, and a trace of displeasure appeared on his face. He said, This general is one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan, Lin Muyu. Ah, she is Lin Muyu? Su Chang looked at him excitedly. She tidied up her dress a little nervously and said, Princess of Twilight Rain City, Su Chang, greets Commander Yu. You're welcome. Lin Muyu raised his hand and didn't even look at her. Su Chang, you can leave. Yes, Grandpa. Su Chang looked at Lin Muyu again and then left reluctantly. You, what do you think of her? Su Muyun asked with a smile. Lin Muyu nodded and said, What do you mean, Duke Yun? Ha. Su Muyun laughed loudly and said, Su Chang is the only bloodline left behind by Su Qin. It's a pity that she's a girl, but she's extremely beautiful. She's somewhat similar to her aunt, the Empress Jingda, Su Yun. Don't you think that her appearance is somewhat similar to Her Highness Yin? As long as you are willing, I will betroth Su Chang to you. In addition, I will also hand over the 200,000 soldiers of Twilight Rain City to you. From then on, we will be a family. Lin Muyu's heart suddenly surged and she said, Duke Yun, I have never thought about my marriage. I only want to assist Xiao Yin and unify the world. It is true that a man's ambition is to unify the world, but it is also human nature to marry and have children. Su Muyun continued patiently and said, Xiao Yin relies on you, and I, Su Muyun, also relies on you. However, I cannot bet everything on the word loyalty. Only if you marry Su Chang, can I hand over half of the world to you. Lin Muyu lowered her head and did not say a word. Su Muyun's eyes shot out a sharp light and he said, Lin Muyu, could it be that you really want to marry Qin Yin? Don't forget, she is the Empress, and what are you? Lin Muyu's body trembled, and she raised her head to look at Su Muyun. She suddenly stood up, grabbed the dragon spirit sword on the table, and said, Duke Yun, I have always loved Xiao Yin. Although I am only a subject, there will be a day when my ability is enough to dominate the world. At that time, you can see if I am worthy of Xiao Yin. As he spoke, he walked out without looking back, and the moment he stepped out of the door, he suddenly stopped and said, In this life, I will not marry anyone else but her. Xiao Yin wants to become an empress that is supported by the world, and I will help her achieve this dream. Duke Yun, I hope that we are not enemies. You are Xiao Yin's maternal grandfather, and also my relative. I do not wish to meet you on the battlefield, and that is all I have to say. Take care of yourself. The sanctuary's aura swirled, and the door automatically opened without any wind. Lin Muyu walked out gracefully, and called out to Wei Chou, Qin Yan and the rest, who were a distance away, Brothers, let's go back. In the room, only Su Muyun and Su Yu stood there in silence. Father, do you still think that Yu is someone you can control? Su Yu said with a self-deprecating smile, Yu is a genius, and he is only loyal to his own beliefs. How can such a person be controlled by an ordinary person? Su Muyun slammed his fist heavily on the table, causing the cups to tremble and fall to the ground. There was only anger in his eyes. This arrogant and conceited brat. Could it be that he wants me to assist him? Su Yu sighed, Father, can't you see it? Yu is still holding a grudge against us. What grudge? He hates us for not sending reinforcements after Lanyan City was besieged, causing Chu Huayin, Qin Lei, Lei Hong and the rest to die in battle. They are all his close relatives, and he will definitely blame this on Muyu City and Qihai City. However, Father, you don't have to worry, at least you will not stand on Tang Lan's side. After all, he killed Tang Bin, and Tang Lan will not tolerate him. Su Muyun slowly sat down, and he untied the sword from his waist. He held it in his hand and looked at it for a long time. Suddenly, the blade was half unsheathed and he said, Am I already old? Su'er was stunned and she said, Father, can you tell me what are you thinking? After Lin Muyu and Su Chang give birth to a child, we will depose Qin Yin and let Lin Muyu's child ascend to the throne. Ah? Su Yu stood there in a daze, and she suddenly became silent. Chapter 412. At night, Phoenix Perching Hall was very quiet. Only the sound of the wind blowing through the curtains could be heard. Winter had come, and it was another winter. A female official placed a heater beside Qin Yin and said with a smile, Your Highness, you've been looking for a long time. Qin Yin held a white robe with a smile. This was an armor cloak that only the white-robed imperial forest was worthy of wearing. Qin Yin had personally embroidered the emblem of the empire's purple Yin flower on it. In addition, the white robe had a small U embroidered on it, and the golden thread used was brand new. The female official couldn't help but laugh. Is this Commander Yu's robe? Yes. Qin Yin smiled happily like a girl in love. She just held the white robe and giggled happily. At this moment, she didn't have the majesty of an empress at all. The female official knelt down and said, Your Highness, this servant will help you put it away. Commander, you will need to wear it tomorrow. The next day, the coronation ceremony of the white-robed imperial forest was a well-deserved event of the empire. On the altar outside Zetian Hall, not only were there many officials, but even the people of Lanyan City were watching the two newly conferred white-robed imperial forests by Her Majesty the Queen from afar. One of the two white-robed imperial forests was a legendary figure, Lin Muyu, one of the four heroes of Lanyan City. During the chaos of Lanyan City, he fought with Luo Lan and died for the country. Later, he was mysteriously resurrected as one of the empire's commanders. His story had been spread to the point where it was common knowledge. Moreover, the people described Lin Muyu's appearance vividly, as if he was a god descending to the mortal world. This made him the dream lover of many girls in Lanyan City, although Lin Muyu didn't know them. The winter wind blew through the square, lifting the cloaks behind Lin Muyu and Suyu. Qin Yin, who was wearing a fur robe, looked extremely gorgeous. She slowly walked forward and took the scepter from the female official's hand. She smiled and said, "This is the loyal bravery scepter. I hope that Ayu and Aunt Luo will never betray the empire and the people of the world." Lin Muyu nodded, "I will." Suer said, "Me too." Qin Yin then took the white robe from the maid's tray and personally draped it over Lin Muyu. Her starry eyes were like water as she looked at her beloved who she had lost and found again. Moreover, Lin Muyu could also be called a jade tree in the wind. Qin Yin was so moved that she almost cried. Pursing her red lips, she said, I order you to always stay by my side and never leave." Lin Muyu looked at her deeply and said seriously, "Even if time and space are reversed, even if the universe is in chaos, I will not leave you, as long as you need me." Qin Yin nodded heavily. Suyu burst into laughter. Hey, I'm also a white-robed imperial forest. Shouldn't you confess to me as well? Qin Yin snappily smiled. Then I hope Aunt Lien finds a man worthy of entrusting her life to soon. Unreliable. Suyu pursed her lips and asked in a low voice, "Is the appointment ceremony over?" Qin Yin turned around and secretly glanced at Guyang on the altar in the distance. She snickered and said, "Grandpa Guyang is like a charlatan. He hasn't finished reading those long and complicated funeral rites." Lin Muyu asked, "Since the Imperial Guards have been rebuilt, they will definitely promote a commander of the Imperial Guards. Does Xiao Yin have anyone in mind?" "Actually, big brother, you should be able to guess it. It's a Yen, right?" I knew it. He's poaching my people again." Poaching without saying a word, Qin Yin burst into laughter. What kind of person does big brother you think Xiao Yin is? I will treat every member of the Imperial Guard well. By the way, I don't have any candidates here, so brother Ayu, please select 100 cultivators from the Holy Temple who are loyal to the Empire and have extraordinary cultivation base. This way, the entire Imperial Guards will be my people. Aren't you afraid that I will take the entire Imperial Guards with me? Lin Muyu was speechless. Qin Yin smiled sweetly and said, "Then you can take me with you." Suyu held her forehead and said, "You guys are so unscrupulously flirting with each other in front of me. Have you ever considered my feelings? Your Highness, I am a loyal official. You can't anger me to death during my conferring ceremony." Qin Yin burst into laughter, held Suyu's wrist and said, "All right, Aunt Ray, I didn't do it on purpose. I'm so hungry. I will treat you to a good meal at Zetian Palace Hall." Sure. Lin Muyu, who was at the side, said, "Oh right, all the delicacies in Zetian Palace Hall seem to be from the tributes of the feudal lords. There isn't anything too fresh. Let's rebuild the Eagle Nest camp as soon as possible so that we can hunt some delicious prey for you every day. Look at you have lost weight." Qin Yin rolled up the Empress's sleeves, looked at her jade-like chubby wrists, and said with a smile, "Is this called losing weight?" Lin Muyu curled her lips and said, "Come early in summer." Qin Yin was surprised. Lin Muyu thought for a while, changed to a more appropriate term, and said, "Xiao Yin, every summer in my hometown is a feast for the eyes. The girls will wear very beautiful clothes, but Lanyan City is different. In summer, the women in Lanyan City are still wrapped up tightly, just like women in the old society. What do you mean by women in the old society? Qin Yin had a helpless look on her face. In any case, Lin Muyu muttered to herself for a long time and said, in any case, if there is a chance, I will bring you back to my hometown to have a look and experience the atmosphere of life there. Su Yu complained helplessly, do you not want the empire anymore? Of course not. Lin Muyu thought for a while and said, after Xiao Yin cultivates the Dragon Slayer technique, she will immediately step into the Saint Domain. I believe that with her ability, she will definitely step into the God realm within 100 years and reach the God Emperor realm within 1,000 years. At that time, the empire will have been passed down for dozens of generations, and we will not be needed anymore. At that time, we will reverse time, and I will bring you home. What do you think? Qin Yin was overjoyed. Oh, it's a deal. Also, we will bring Xiao Shi and Sister Chu Yao. Okay. Lin Muyu clenched her fist complacently and said, when I return to Shanghai with my God Emperor realm mystic strength, my father will be scared to death. At that time, I will bring you to eat all over the country, and then travel around Europe, hee. Su Yu said helplessly, Xiao Yin, what is he talking to himself about? Qin Yin shook her head. I don't know either. Finally, the long conferring ceremony ended. Lin Muyu, Su Yu, and Qin Yin walked down the stage and accepted the congratulations of the officials. At the same time, they officially confirmed the establishment of the Imperial Guard. They had lunch at Zetian Palace Hall and returned to the Divine Temple in the afternoon. Lin Muyu had to settle the matter of the Imperial Guard for Qin Yin as soon as possible. Ever since Lin Muyu returned, the Divine Temple used the system of centralizing manpower. The outstanding cultivators from the various divine temples were invited to serve at the headquarters. Therefore, there were more than 1,000 instructors and trainers. It was not difficult to select 100 people with Earth Realm cultivation and above, and there were even a few experts with Heaven Realm cultivation. In the evening, 100 Divine Temple experts came to Zetian Palace Hall to accept the Empress conferring. At this time, Qin Yen had already changed into a commander's armor and stood there happily with his hand on his sword. He looked very mighty. He became one of the commanders of the empire at such a young age, and he was probably the first person in recent times. Big brother. Qin Yen looked at Lin Muyu with a smile. Lin Muyu walked forward and helped Qin Yen remove the captaincy insignia on his collar with a serious expression. Then she helped him wear the commander insignia with 3 gold stars and said, Yen, from today onwards, you are the commander of the Imperial Guard, one of the most important commanders in the empire. You should be very clear about how important this position is. You must be careful and not be careless. Don't disappoint Her Highness's trust in you. Also, the previous commander of the Imperial Guard is your brother, so don't disappoint big brother Qin Lei. Qin Yen was solemn and quickly gave a military salute to Lin Muyu and said, Big brother, don't worry. Yen will definitely not disappoint you and my brother, and I will definitely not disappoint Her Highness the Empress. Good, very spirited. Lin Muyu smiled cheerfully. Feng Jixing, who was at the side, said, This scene actually made me vaguely recall the appearance of the 4 heroes of Lan and Yen back then. Sigh, it's a pity that old Chu is missing. The Flying Mount Camp has been completely annihilated, and this organization no longer exists. No, it won't. Qin Yin walked over step by step and said, As long as the time is right, I will rebuild the Flying Mount Camp. However, this is on the premise that General Feng and Big Brother you must support me. That's for sure. Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing nodded their heads together. Qin Yin looked at Lin Muyu and said with a smile, Big brother you, since the Imperial Guards have already been reorganized, it's better to do it sooner rather than later. I plan to start rebuilding the Imperial Guard within half a month. The establishment will be set at 10,000 people, and the soldiers of the Imperial Guard will be selected from the Longdan Army Camp and the Imperial Guards. You and General Feng shouldn't have any objections, right? Lin Muyu laughed straightforwardly and said, Don't worry, there are plenty of soldiers in the Longdan Army Camp. Feng Jixing cupped his fists and said, The Imperial Guards were trained by new recruits 2 years ago and have just taken shape. Since you has already boasted, Then let's select 10,000 people from the Longdan army camp alone. Lin Muyu regretted it so much that her intestines turned green. She never expected that Feng Jixing would be so shameless. She hurriedly said, "That won't do. Your Highness's words carry enormous weight. If you say that you will select 2 troops, then you must select 2. I can't just take advantage of it." Feng Jixing laughed heartily and said, "That's fine, but..." He muttered to himself for a moment and said, "Your Highness, the time is ripe. Can we consider expanding the Imperial Guard? The 20,000 Imperial Guards are simply not enough. Any army of the feudal lords can destroy us. What I mean is that the Imperial Guard should have at least 50,000 people. Otherwise, it will be difficult to take on the heavy responsibility of protecting the imperial capital. The chaos in Lanyan City 4 years ago has proven everything." "That's good." Qin Yin was a little embarrassed and said, "But the expansion of the army must go through the Ministry of War. The Minister of War, Xue Ling, is Duke Lan's man. I'm afraid that this resolution won't be passed." "Then what should we do?" Feng Jixing stood there gnashing his teeth. Lin Muyu said, "I have a suggestion." "Oh, what is it?" Feng Jixing and Qin Yin asked in unison. Lin Muyu said, "Since Duke Lan and Duke Yun want to stop the Imperial Guard from recruiting new soldiers, then let's recruit them in secret. All the recruited soldiers will be placed into the Imperial Guard's external corps and won't be included in the Imperial Guard's military system. If Duke Lan and Duke Yun pursue the matter, Big Brother Feng can say that these soldiers belong to the external corps and aren't officially part of the Imperial Guard. They are only doing odd jobs, so they won't be able to pursue the matter. In any case, there's no military police battalion now, so there's no need to be afraid. We can just deal with them." Feng Jixing's eyes lit up as he suddenly patted Lin Muyu's shoulder and said, "Brat, you actually thought of such a shameless idea." Lin Muyu trembled and turned to look at him speechlessly. "Fortunately, I'm also a saint. Otherwise, I would have been killed by you." Feng Jixing laughed out loud. I'll treat you to a drink tomorrow. I'll call 3 girls from the brothel for you." "All right." Qin Yin was speechless. At this moment, an official suddenly shouted, "Deputy Commander Wei Cho requests an audience." "Let him in." Yes. Not only did Wei Cho enter, but he also brought a beautiful young lady with him. It was Jin Xiaotang. When Jin Xiaotang saw Qin Yin, she immediately knelt down respectfully and said, "Greetings, Your Highness. You may rise." Qin Yin smiled gently and said, "Xiaotang is Big Brother Yu's woman, so she is also mine. There's no need to stand on ceremony." "Xiaoying, what's the matter?" Lin Muyu asked. "Big Brother Yu, a batch of white diamond ornaments that we bought from the Qihai province was robbed 25 kilometers north of Lanyan City," Jin Xiaotang said with some grievance. *CK. Lin Muyu raised her eyebrows. "Who has the guts to touch the goods of our Xin Flower Chamber of Commerce?" Chapter 413. "I'm afraid there's only one person who dares to touch the goods of the Xin Flower Chamber of Commerce," Wei Cho said with narrowed eyes. "Who?" Lin Muyu asked. "Situ Sin." Wei Cho's eyes lit up. The entire slum area in the east and west of Lanyan City is controlled by the Heaven Execution Society, established by this person. From human trafficking to the employment of wandering mercenaries, even the Imperial Army has to give him some face. "There's such a thing?" Lin Muyu looked at Feng Jixing and said, "General Feng, Lanyan City is the territory of your Imperial Army. How can you tolerate the existence of such a person?" "It's not as simple as you think. Feng Jixing touched his nose and said, "After 3 years of recuperation and population migration, Lanyan City has recovered to a megacity with a population of 5 million. The scale of the city is far larger than you can imagine. The slum area stretches for hundreds of miles and is not under the jurisdiction of the 20,000 Imperial Army. On the other hand, the Heaven Execution Society has more than 100,000 members and has spontaneously formed a self-growing model. Although the Heaven Execution Society has also done some bad things, they have unknowingly solved the food, water, clothing, and other problems of the slum area." Qin Yin blinked and said with a smile, Brother Yu, our current military and financial strength are quite limited, so we have allowed Situ Sen and the Heaven Execution Society to grow in power in the east and west of the city. But don't worry, this is just General Feng's tactic of rearing pigs. Once the time is ripe, the Heaven Execution Society will provide us with a lot of manpower and material resources. So it's because the empire is unable to govern. Lin Muyu pondered for a moment and said with a smile, "It doesn't matter. Let me go meet this Situ Sen and see who he is. How dare he rob my goods?" "You be careful," Feng Jixing cautiously warned. Situ Sen is not the only one in the Heaven Execution Society. He has a younger sister called Situ Shui. She is the leader of the North Ridge Mercenary Group, the top mercenary group in Lanyan City. You should have heard of her. Lin Muyu was stunned. Situ Shui? It does sound familiar. If you're going to the Heaven Execution Association's headquarters, you'll need to bring more people with you. That way, you'll be able to protect yourself if a conflict breaks out. Got it, don't worry, big brother Feng. Lin Muyu turned around and cupped her fists. She bowed to Qin Yin and excused herself. Then she led Wei Chou, Jin Xiaotang, and the others out of Zhe Tian Palace. "Commander, how many brothers of the Longdan army camp should we bring?" Wei Chou asked. "We don't need too many. 1,000 soldiers will do. Let Fengxi and Su Jiantao lead the troops." "Yes." 2 hours later, the cavalry of the Courage of the Dragon Battalion galloped out of the camp. Under Lin Muyu and Wei Chou's lead, they headed straight for Dongqing District. The headquarters of the Heaven Execution Association was in the center of the slums in Dongqing District. At the same time, it was also the poorest and most densely populated place in Lanyan City. As for Tongtian Street, where Lin Muyu usually resided, it was actually a place where nobles and wealthy commoners gathered. After galloping for more than half an hour, the buildings on both sides of the street gradually disappeared. They were replaced by low-rise houses that were closely connected to each other. Many of them were made of wood, as if they could be washed away by a heavy rain. The people in the slums looked indifferent as they watched the army of the Longdan army camp gallop past them. It was as if they had nothing to do with it. Not far ahead was the food market and slave market. Although the Qin Empire seemed to be very prosperous, it was still in the transitional stage between a slave society and a feudal society. The people's hearts were cold, and a group of slaves stood in a row like goods for the merchants who came and went to pick and choose. It was as if black, white, fat, and skinny were all bargaining chips. Lin Muyu frowned and urged his horse forward slowly. Jin Xiaotang seemed to see through his thoughts. She smiled and said, "Brother Yu, you still can't stand the slave trade?" Lin Muyu nodded. "People are born equal." Jin Xiaotang was a little surprised. She stuck out her tongue and smiled. "But in this world it is not like this. Some people are born to be emperors, like Her Highness. Some people are born to be slaves, like these people in front of us." Lin Muyu said, "If we were to release these slaves, give them abandoned land for them to cultivate and harvest a portion of their food, wouldn't the value they could produce be even greater?" Jin Xiaotang was stunned again. "Maybe Brother Yu is right, but Xiaoting has never thought about this." Wei Chou said in a low voice, "Commander, do you want us to use the funds of the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce to buy the strong men in the slave market at a low price and grant them freedom so that they can pick up weapons and serve the country loyally?" Lin Muyu shook her head and said, "This will only make the slave traders more aggressive. One day I will change everything from the source." Wei Chou was stunned and didn't say anything. Perhaps it was as Lin Muyu said, this situation needed a change. What could be changed? Nothing more than an imperial edict from Empress Qin Yin to grant amnesty to all the slaves in the world, grant them complete equality, and compensate and appease the masters of those slaves. This would change everything fundamentally. But this needed time, a lot of time. The sound of galloping horses could be heard. After passing through several city gates, they finally arrived at the heart of the slums. From afar, a patrolling knight could be seen leading a warhorse over. His face was full of fat. He bowed respectfully to Lin Muyu and said, "This subordinate greets Lord Commander. May I know who this general is?" Wei Chou pointed to the insignia of the Longdan Army Camp on his chest and said, "We are from the Longdan Army Camp." The patrolling knight naturally knew who this handsome commander was. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, Commander Yu." Lin Muyu nodded and asked, "What's your name? What is your responsibility here?" The patrolling knight replied, "My name is Zhang Lei, and I belong to the Ministry of War. I am responsible for patrolling this street." "You are the only one on such a big street?" Lin Muyu was surprised. "Yes, the Ministry of War doesn't have that many soldiers to share the workload. Furthermore, there are thousands of streets like this in the East District. It is very troublesome to patrol, so there are very few soldiers assigned. I guess the security here isn't very good, right?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Zhang Lei was silent out of fear. He cupped his fists and said, "Reporting to Commander Yu, very few people cause trouble here. Commander, please investigate this." "Alright, let's not talk so much. Bring me to the headquarters of the Tianju Association. I want to see Sidu Senior." Zhang Lei was aghast. "But you don't dare to go?" Wei Chou sneered. Zhang Lei gritted his teeth and said, "Then, I will only bring you to the entrance of the headquarters of the Tianju Association. I will not go in." "Alright, let's go." "Yes." Zhang Lei mounted his horse and led Lin Muyu and the others to the end of the street. At the end of the street, there were no longer any poor people. Instead, there was a group of people dressed in embroidered robes. A black tower rose from the ground amidst the dilapidated buildings. It stood out like a crane among a flock of chickens in the slums. This was the headquarters of the Heaven Execution Association. Wei Chou, Feng Shi, and the others couldn't help but sigh in admiration. The Tianju Association was indeed extraordinary. The grandeur of this building was already comparable to a noble's mansion. When Zhang Lei arrived at the front of the mansion, several people wearing cyan armor laughed loudly. "Hi, Lieutenant Zhang Lei, why are you here again? What, the hot and sour rice I treated you to last time was not hot and sour enough?" Zhang Lei's face was ashen as he urged his horse to take several steps back. The disciples of the Tianju Association rushed out from the courtyard, grabbed the reins, and forcibly pulled Zhang Lei off his horse. One of them laughed loudly. "You dare meddle in the affairs of our Tianju Association? You must be tired of living. Come, kowtow to this grandpa a few times and I will let you go back to your official duties." Zhang Lei's expression was extremely ugly as he looked at Lin Muyu and the others for help. At this time, the disciples of the Tianju Association turned around and saw 1,000 elite soldiers from the Longdan Army Camp standing behind them. Their faces immediately turned pale. Lin Muyu dismounted and smiled faintly. "Imperial Longdan Army Camp, Lin Muyu requests an audience with Sidu Senator. Please pass on the message for me." You guys." The leader's face was ashen. "The Imperial Army never comes to our Lanshui Street. What is the Longdan Army Camp thinking?" Wei Chou's expression turned cold. He unsheathed his sword halfway and growled, "What are you waiting for? Do you want to die?" Yes, wait a moment." The ruffians let go of Zhang Lei and rushed into the mansion in a panic. Zhang Lei said with a face full of shame, "Commander Yu, this subordinate has embarrassed the Imperial Army." "It's fine," Lin Muyu said with a gentle expression. "It's the Ministry of Military Affairs that assigned too few people here, and the Tianju Association is too arrogant. It's not your fault, but you're the one suffering here." "This subordinate isn't suffering," Zhang Lei said in a trembling voice. "Go, leave the matters here to me." About the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the Longdan Army Camp outside the mansion had become extremely impatient. Many people had drawn their swords and were ready to charge in at any time to start a massacre. The group of Tianju Association guards outside the gate turned pale with fright, not daring to breathe loudly. These people from the Tianju Association could only ride roughshod over the civilians. Once they encountered a regular army like the Longdan Army Camp, they would immediately be scared out of their wits. It was at this moment that a martial artist wearing fiery red armor and a long sword walked out. He cupped his fists and smiled respectfully at Lin Muyu. So it's Commander Yu who has come. I'm one of the 5 stewards of the Tianju Association, Zhonyan. Steward Situ Sen has already prepared a banquet. Please come in with us, Commander Yu. Many thanks. Lin Muyu cupped her fists and smiled. She placed her hand on the hilt of the sword at her waist and stepped inside. Wei Chou, Feng Shi, and the others dismounted and led the Longdan army camp inside. Zhou Nian hurriedly turned around with an awkward expression. Commander Yu, please forgive me. The Tianju Association's headquarters is too small and can't accommodate too many people. So, only 5 of you can go in. Is that so? Lin Muyu smiled and said, Wei Chou, bring 3 people and follow me in. Feng Shi, Su Jiantao, the 2 of you guard outside with everyone else. Feng Shi and Su Jiantao said in unison. Wei Chou smiled and said, if the commander and I don't come out in 2 hours, return to the camp and gather 20,000 soldiers from the Longdan army camp to raise this Tianju Association to the ground. Protect Xiaoteng well. Lin Muyu instructed and stepped onto the stone steps of the Tianju Association's headquarters without looking back. Chapter 414. The gate of the headquarters was tightly shut and covered with spikes. It was guarded by 8 guards. One of them quickly stepped forward and reached out to block the gate, saying, "Milord, please follow our rules and remove your weapons before entering the headquarters." Remove weapons? Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. You bunch of gangsters, who gave you the right to remove the weapons of the Empire's commander? We. The guard was actually speechless. Zhou Nian coughed and said, all right, let Commander Yu bring his weapons in. This is how we treat our guests. With a creak, the gate slowly opened. Although it was daytime, there were many braziers and candles burning inside. Smoke lingered in the air, making Lin Muyu feel like she was in the Hall of Chivalry. She stepped into the headquarters step by step. When her eyes adjusted to the brightness, she found that it was a meeting hall with a disc-shaped basin in the middle and raised platforms on both sides. The platforms were filled with people and there was wine and meat on the tables. Lin Muyu released the spirit pulse technique and found that most of these people were at the Earth realm. Lanyan City was indeed a city of hidden talents. There was actually a group of Earth realm experts gathered here. She led Wei Chou and the others into the disc and could only look up at the person at the host's table. It was a young man in tiger skin armor. He was less than 30 years old and looked quite handsome. He stared at Lin Muyu like a hawk and suddenly stood up. He held a wine glass and smiled, saying, I was wondering who it was. So it's the general of Lanyan City. You are Situ-sen? Lin Muyu asked proudly. She was surrounded by gusts of wind and the white imperial forest cloak behind her fluttered even though there was no wind. She didn't look angry. Situ-sen put down his wine glass and smiled. And you are? Lin Muyu. Oh, so it's the famous Commander Yu of Iha country. Situ-sen cupped his fists and bowed. His bow didn't seem pretentious at all and was truly respectful. May I know why Commander Rain has come to visit Tianju? We have a batch of white diamond ornaments we bought from Qihai City. They were robbed outside the northern city of Lanyan City. I wonder if it was your association? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Unexpectedly, Situ-sen confessed and laughed. Yes, I did order the looting, but I thought it was the noble ladies of Lanyan City who bought the goods. I didn't expect it to be Commander Yu's goods. Lin Muyu said, these white diamonds are used to refine white diamond arrowheads to fight against the demon race and the Iha kingdom. I hope your excellency can return them in full. Situ-sen kept muttering to himself, but a young girl sitting beside him raised her eyebrows and said with a smile, what a joke. You think you can return it just because you say so? Who do you think you are? Lin Muyu looked up. This girl was dressed in military attire with 2 crescent blades hanging from her waist. They didn't look like weapons from the Middle Earth, but she was very pretty and somewhat similar to Situ Senator. She should be Situ Shui. Lin Muyu smiled and asked, what's wrong, North Ridge Mercenary Group leader? Situ Shui gently pulled out one of the crescent blades and smiled. Since Commander Rain knows me, Situ Shui, then you should know my style. If you can't win against my 2 blades, Then don't mention returning the goods. More than a dozen of our men died in order to steal your goods. You killed people for their goods and sold them for profit. Lin Muyu raised her long sword lightly without unsheathing the dragon's spiritual sword. With a confident and arrogant attitude, she said, Miss Situ, come at me. If I can defeat you after unsheathing my sword, it'll be my loss. Arrogant. Situ Shui jumped down and raised her two blades, slashing down with the radiance of battle energy. Lin Muyu's martial soul surged, and the golden gourd wall broke out of her body, illuminating the entire meeting hall. The dragon spirit and the scabbard parried Situ Shui's double blades, but Situ Shui's movements were very agile. She immediately changed her move when her attack missed. One of her blades parried the dragon spirit, and the other slashed towards Lin Muyu's abdomen ruthlessly. What a fierce little girl! Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice. Dragon Qi lingered around her left arm, and she raised her true dragon arm horizontally to parry Situ Shui's blade. At the same time, she turned her right wrist, and the dragon spirit cleverly spun in the air to parry Situ Shui's blade. The hilt of the sword fell down with a loud bang, directly hitting towards Situ Shui's shoulder. In your dreams! Situ Shui's beautiful face was filled with fighting spirit, and with a single step, she dodged the attack from the dragon spirit's hilt. Raising both of her blades horizontally, they shined like snowflakes as they slashed towards Lin Muyu's lower back. However, Lin Muyu's speed was even faster. She used the falling star step to dodge Situ Shui's attack, and at the same time, her battle boots were also filled with whirlwind do qi as she kicked out. Situ Shui could feel the power of this kick, and she hurriedly raised her blades in front of her chest to parry. But Lin Muyu's strength was too much stronger than hers. With a loud bang, Situ Shui's blades flew out of her hands, and she fell on the spectator's stand in a slightly awkward manner. Protect the leader! A group of high-ranking generals of the North Ridge Mercenary Corps stood up, pulled out their weapons, and pounced over. Lin Muyu didn't dodge, and she didn't even unsheath the dragon spirit. She directly swept over with whirlwind battle energy, and the attack carried the power of the god-binding chains, created an arc of energy impact, blowing more than a dozen generals away. Even the candles on the spectator's stand were extinguished. Standing on the round disc with wisps of golden god-binding chains around her, Lin Muyu raised her head and asked proudly, "Who else wants to try?" Everyone was shocked and dumbfounded. It was common knowledge that Situ Shui was at the first level of the Heaven Realm, but Situ Shui was defeated in 3 moves by Lin Muyu without unsheathing her blade. The others definitely had no chance of winning. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of applause came from Situ's senator. He stood up proudly and said, "The 4 heroes of Lanyan are indeed worthy of their reputation. Situ Shui must be convinced of her defeat. Commander Yu, we, the Heaven Execution Society, have our own rules. I can return the white diamond to you, but you must win against me, Situ-sen, with this sword in my hand. Do you dare?" "Why not?" Lin Muyu slowly pulled out the dragon spirit and smiled proudly. "If I can't convince you, citizen, how can I convince the world?" What a big tone. I like it. Situ-sen slowly pulled out his blade. It also had the soul of a saint beast. It was a sacred weapon. The slums also had a sacred weapon. Moreover, there were 3 milky white fighting spirits hovering above Situ-sen's blade. He was an expert at the middle level of the 3rd level of the Heaven Realm. Lanyan City was really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Looking at Lin Muyu, Situ-sen said lightly, "If Commander you can defeat me, Citizen, in 3 moves, you win." But Lin Muyu nodded. "Let's begin." Situ-sen roared and raised his fighting spirit to the peak. In fact, Lin Muyu's injury had not healed, and the strength of her fighting spirit might not be stronger than Situ-sen's. This was really an evenly matched battle. The only variable was the moves. Lin Muyu's moves were obviously far above Situ-sen's. Buzz. Raging flames surged. Lin Muyu's first move was a killing move, using fire to control the sword. Faced with the dragon spirit sword that was rotating at high speed and surging with true dragon origin fire, Situ-sen naturally had to go all out. With a loud shout, do qi gathered on the blade of the sword. Rays of purple light appeared around his body like a whirlpool. Go! As Lin Muyu launched her sword, Sidu-san quickly retreated as if he was escaping. However, a purple whirlpool of power was revolving around him, distorting the power of the dragon spirit fire spiral break. The next moment, Sidu-san roared and actually reversed the situation, blasting the dragon spirit sword at Lin Muyu. Damn! Heart-turning art! Sidu-san roared, and the dragon spirit sword counterattacked Lin Muyu. How is this possible? Lin Muyu was stunned. She hurriedly opened her right palm, and the power of stars surged. With a roar, she forcefully smashed the dragon spirit sword to the ground. Bang! Stone chips flew everywhere, and the shockwave forced those who were close to her to retreat. At the same time, the power of stars gathered in her right fist, and suddenly jumped up. Lin Muyu adopted a condescending posture. The conference hall looked like it was penetrated by countless stars. The stars were shining all over the sky, and they gathered into Lin Muyu's palm strength. It fell from the sky. It was the third move of the star art, 5 mountains descend from the sky. And this time, it was really the 5 mountains descend from the sky. The power of Lin Muyu's palm was no less than the pressure of a mountain. Since Sidu-san had the ability of Big Dipper, let's see if he had the magical power of turning mountains. Facing Lin Muyu's great palm strength, Sidu-san's face was aghast. He held the long sword horizontally in front of his chest, and forcibly stirred the heart-turning art's power. His face was pale. When the 5 mountains descend from the sky got closer and closer, Sidu-san's face became paler and paler, but he continued to stir the heart-turning art's power, trying to divert the power of the 5 mountains descend from the sky. However, in the next second, Sidu-san had already given up. The power of the stars was like a surging river, and it was impossible to divert it, let alone use it for his own use. The stone tiles under his feet were constantly cracking under the pressure of the 5 mountains descend from the sky, and even the skin between his thumb and index finger was bleeding. At this time, Sidu-san finally gritted his teeth and shouted, "I lost." Swoosh! The star power that Lin Muyu condensed in the center of his palm suddenly loosened and smoothly slid over Sidu-san's head. After floating to the ground, he gently swung his palm, and the terrifying power that made Sidu-san feel as if he was in purgatory dissipated into indigo-blue stardust, which was a spectacular sight. Sidu-san kept panting, and his face was livid. "May I ask, Commander Yu, what is this power? How could it be so heavy and vigorous?" "The skill that I cultivate is called star art, and it originates from the star power in the sky," Lin Muyu lightly explained, and then smiled. "Lord Sidu-san is really amazing. There are not many people who can make me use the star art." Sidu-san's face was full of shame, and he cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Commander Yu, for not killing me. Sidu-san appreciates it." He was also a broad-minded person, and he spoke his mind. "Now, can you return the white diamond to our purple flower chamber of commerce?" Lin Muyu smiled and asked. "Of course." Chapter 415. Sidu-san looked at his subordinates and said, "Men, bring all the white diamonds from the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce here and return them to Commander Yu." The subordinates cupped their fists and went to move the goods. Sidu-san turned around and said, "Commander Yu, would you do me the honor of having a drink with us at the Tianju Association?" "Sure." Lin Muyu was interested in befriending him and naturally nodded. "Great. This way, please." Sidu-san led Lin Muyu to the host's table and set up another table with good wine and meat. Lin Muyu stayed behind to drink and raised her eyebrows. "Wei Cho, go and tell everyone to lift their guard and send someone over to move the goods." "Yes, Commander." Wei Cho turned around and left. Not long after Lin Muyu sat down, Sidu Shui came over. She looked valiant and heroic. She raised her cup with both hands and smiled. "I was disrespectful just now. I hope Commander Yu will forgive me. This cup is a toast of apology from Sidu Shui." "Why would I? You don't have to take it to heart, Mississippi." Lin Muyu raised her cup and drained it in one gulp. She turned to look at Sidu-san and said, "Sir Sidu-san, You are so skilled that few people in the empire are your match. Why did you end up in a place like this, preying on the people and acting like a tyrant? I am ashamed. Citizen looked ashamed and said, I was originally one of the captaincy of the Tianchong Legion. 4 years ago, I was seriously injured by Luo Lan's subordinate, Yan Li, in the battle at Lanyan City. Therefore, I hid in the slums to avoid the disaster. Later, I felt ashamed to meet the Empress again, so I hid in the slums, killed the original in charge of the Tianju Association, and made myself the leader. I see. Lin Muyu nodded. So it's Yan Li. Sidu Sen's face was full of respect as he said, I heard that not long ago, Commander Yu took back the head of Commander Qin Lei from the Iha Kingdom and killed dozens of generals from the Iha Kingdom, including Yan Li. Is it true? It's true. Lin Muyu patted the armor on her chest and said, My injuries haven't fully healed yet, it's all thanks to Lu Zhan and Yan Li. As he spoke, he raised his eyebrows and said, Sir Situ Sen, the changing heart mantra that you used can turn your opponent's strength into your own. It's very mysterious and it sounds familiar. I seem to have heard of it somewhere before. Citizen shuddered and said, Commander Yui? Is there something you can't say? No, it's just that. Citizen looked like he wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Situ Shui couldn't stand it anymore and directly said, Commander Yu, my brother and I are the descendants of the famous General Sidu Qiong of the Empire. However, my brother has been depressed in the Tianchong army. General Du Hai has no intention of promoting my brother for many years, so my brother has the intention of retreating. During the Battle of Lanyan City, my brother wasn't afraid of death. Please investigate clearly, Lin Muyu said softly, it doesn't matter. During the Battle of Lanyan City, everyone was running for their lives in a daze. Who could care about others? However, now that Empress Qin Yin has ascended to the throne, an expert like you, Sidu Sen, is living in the slums of Lanyan City. Don't you feel that you're useless? I know, but, Situ Sen said with some distress, I'm afraid that the imperial court is full of treacherous people, and there's no place for people like me. That won't happen. Lin Muyu said confidently, as long as you're willing, I can recommend you to Her Highness. With your ability and appeal, I believe you can build a new army. You should also know that the demons have fallen from the sky and occupied the eastern regions of Lingdong Province, Tongtian Province, and Songnan Province. The empire is in need of manpower now. Sidu Sen's eyes lit up and he said, I don't need Commander Yu's recommendation. But Lin Muyu was stunned. Sidu Sen suddenly took a big gulp of hard liquor. His eyes were burning as he said, although I'm not in the imperial court, I know how dirty it is. Lord Lan and Lord Yun each occupy half of the empire, and the Empress lives in the cracks. If I really build an imperial army, it will most likely be controlled by either Lord Lan or Lord Yun. I, Sidu Sen, have been open and above board all my life, and I don't want to be that kind of lowly person. So, Commander Yu, please accept me. I'm willing to call on the brothers of the Tianju Society to join the Longdan army camp and follow you to conquer the world. You're really willing to follow me? Lin Muyu was stunned. Sidu Sen nodded. He laughed again. But the brothers of the Tianju Society are not easy to deal with. If you want us to join the Imperial Army, it depends on your sincerity. After all, there's no free pancake in this world, and there's no free sex either. At the side, Sidu Shui pouted and said, Brother, you're so rude. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. You and your brothers can also get the treatment that the Longdan army camp can get. When the time is right, all of you will become members of the Longdan army camp. Situ Sen nodded. These are not problems. If it's to kill the demons and show our loyalty to the Empire, we definitely won't have any objections. It's just that, most of my brothers come from poor backgrounds, and many of their sisters and brothers are slaves. Sidu Sen only asks for one thing. If you can get an imperial edict from Her Highness to pardon their families, we will definitely follow you to our deaths. Pardon? Lin Muyu furrowed his brows and remained silent. But, Commander, you don't dare? Situ Sen squinted his eyes and asked with a smile. What's there to be afraid of? Lin Muyu nodded. I will tell Her Highness the truth, but you must also abide by my promise. From today onwards, your men can no longer do evil, bully the people, and rob. Otherwise, if the Longdan army camp catches them, they will kill every single one of them. Don't blame me for being ruthless. Citizen cupped his fists. Rest assured, sir. Please trust me, Senator, I won't let you down. Lin Muyu raised her head and looked at Sidu Shui. Suddenly, Sidu Shui's heart was beating wildly under the gaze of this handsome commander. She blushed and said, Sir, do you want to take in my North Ridge Mercenary Regiment as well? That's right. Lin Muyu nodded. The Empire is on the brink of life and death. Your North Ridge Mercenary Regiment is the strongest in Lanyan City. Do you still want to occupy a mountain and wait to reap the benefits? Miss Sidu Shui, I can tell you the truth. If the steel wall of Tsangnan province fails, the demon clan will definitely massacre every inch of the empire. No matter which mountain the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment hides in, they won't be able to escape this disaster. Hee, Commander, don't scare me. Sidu Shui patted her chest and pretended to be extremely scared. She continued to ask with a smile, Commander Yu, are the demon clan really as powerful as the legends say? Yes, even a sanctuary expert like Du Hai was killed. You can imagine how powerful the demon clan is. Lin Muyu said. Then has Commander Yu fought with Lei Chong? Yes. What are the odds of winning? No chance of winning. Lin Muyu answered honestly. It can't be? Sidu Shui stuck out her tongue and said, even Commander Yu, with her amazing cultivation, is no match for them. Yes. Lin Muyu looked at her with a smile. Let's get back to business. I am now one of the generals of the Empire. I have enough power to decide these things. Miss Situ Shui, are you willing to lead the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment to join our Longdan army camp? Well, Sidu Shui said awkwardly, I don't have the final say on this. If you want all of them to join, it will be a little difficult. First of all, they must have enough money to settle down. What do you mean by that? We mercenaries are different from you soldiers. We can only stay on the mountain and don't even have a home. Many of our brothers don't even have a wife. So, we need at least 200 Jinin coins to settle down their families in a house around Lanyan City. Otherwise, they won't give up the mercenary commission and become soldiers of the Empire. I see. How many people are there in the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment? More than 15,000. All right. Lin Muyu looked at Sidu Shui and said, It's a deal. I will take out 3 million Jinin coins and you must lead the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment to join the Longdan army camp. All right. Sidu Shui shook Lin Muyu's hand and said, It's a deal. As she spoke, she blushed again. Lin Muyu couldn't help but look at Situ Sen and asked, How did your sister become the leader of the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment? Isn't it simple? Sidu Sen chuckled. She started as an ordinary mercenary and fought her way up. Finally, she defeated the old leader with 2 swords. After the old leader retired, it was her turn. I see. It was almost dusk when Lin Muyu and Sidu Sen finally came to an agreement. Although Situ Sen was a straightforward person, he also gave a lot of conditions. On the other hand, Sidu Shui's conditions were simpler. She was willing to join the Longdan army camp as long as she had the money. However, she and her brother had to be given the position of captaincy. This was simple. Lin Muyu could use the seal to confer the title of commander. Under the setting sun, Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, and Fengxi slowly left the slums. Commander, do you really trust Sidu Sen? Wei Chou asked worriedly. Trust. Lin Muyu nodded and suddenly smiled. Although this person isn't easy to deal with his cultivation and charisma, he will be a great help if I can use him. No matter what, our Longdan army camp needs people like him. And the leader of the North Ridge Mercenary Regiment, Situ Shui. Have you decided to recruit this group of mercenaries? What are we going to do now? To see Her Highness and request for an imperial edict to truly subdue Situ Sen and Situ Shui. Give the order to expand the Longdan army camp and build another camp in the wilderness north of the city. The city really can't garrison so many people. Yes, I understand. Chapter 416. That night, Lin Muyu received the pardon edict from Qin Yin. She was extraordinarily efficient. She brought Fengxi, Su Jiantao, and the others to the slums in the east of Lanyan City and read the edict to everyone. Then, she gave the edict to Situ's senator. With this edict, he could pardon any servant related to the Heaven Judgment Society. As for the gold hun coins, it took Jin shouting half a day to gather 3 million gold hun coins. However, in exchange, Lin Muyu had to forge some dream of returning peaks and a batch of weapons for the Chamber of Commerce. She had nothing better to do anyway. 6 days passed in the blink of an eye. Lin Muyu's injuries had recovered by 90%. Her strength had mostly recovered, and there were signs that she was stronger than before. Her battle chi had become thicker and purer. As her strength improved, the God-binding chains and martial soul gourd also became stronger day by day. This was something he could feel. Early in the morning, the holy temple was silent. Frost covered the ground on this winter morning, and the temperature dropped sharply. It was so cold that people shivered. It seemed that the first snow of the year was about to arrive. In the center of the hall, a purple stone was placed there, surrounded by Guyang, Zhou Yao, Bailey Fu, and Jing Shanhe, the 4 deacons, Guyang, Zhou Yao, Bailey Fu, and Jing Shanhe. In addition, even Chu Chu was there. He was reading a thick book with a face full of suspicion. "Chu, did you find it?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile. "Not yet." Chu Chu shook his head. Lin Muyu smiled. "Why don't we forget about it? There's no need to name my martial soul, right?" "That won't do." Gu Yang's tone left no room for argument. You are now the Grand Deacon, the soul of the Empire's cultivation world. If we can't even identify your martial soul and name it, then I'm afraid the myriad soul canon will no longer be the #1 canon in the world regarding martial souls. Okay then. Lin Muyu drank her tea. After a while, Chu Chu finally lost his patience. He closed the book and said, "I'm afraid." There was no mention of Yu's martial spirit in the books of our ancestors. In my opinion, why don't we test the strength of our martial spirits ourselves, and determine the levels of our martial spirits, then we can just name them. Gu Yang laughed. All right, that's what I mean too. Chu Chu nodded. You, go to the testing stone and summon your green gourd. Push your martial spirit's power to the highest level. Yes, Chu. Lin Muyu stood up and walked to the testing stone. This stone was collected from deep within the mountains. It possessed natural spiritual energy and was naturally sensitive to human martial spirits. Lin Muyu gently placed her palm on the stone. The golden gourd emerged from her body. As Lin Muyu activated her Do Qi, the light became more and more intense. In the blink of an eye, it let out a weng weng sound, illuminating the entire temple. The light on the testing stone continued to shine. It changed from green to green, then to black, then to deep red, and finally stopped at purple. It's purple now. Gu Yang was overjoyed. Chu's martial spirit has already reached the purple first grade. Under Yu's cultivation, this gourd martial spirit has already advanced to the first grade. Chu Chu twirled his beard and laughed. Yu is indeed talented. He can do what others can't. I can feel that this green gourd martial spirit has the essence of the 7 luminaries' Shen force. As Yu grew, the essence of the martial spirit was changed by the 7 luminaries' Shen force. That's why its power is so powerful. In my opinion, Yu's first grade martial spirit should be named 7 luminaries Holy Gourd. Deacon Gu Yang, what do you think? Gu Yang chuckled. Good name. Chu is really knowledgeable. This 7 luminaries Holy Gourd is enough to become a first-grade martial spirit. Gu Yang picked up a brush, dipped it in ink, and wrote the name of 7 luminaries Holy Gourd on the second page of the Book of 10,000 Souls. At the same time, there were 6 other first-grade martial spirits: God-binding chain, demon blood saber, purple dragon, 8 desolate sword, dragon beard vine, and stepping fire tiger. Chu Chu squinted his eyes and said, You, summon your God-binding chain and push your power to the highest level. Yes, Chu. Lin Muyu gave a low shout, and 9 golden God-binding chains appeared around her. Light swirled around her, and as Lin Muyu exerted her strength, The golden light expanded explosively. At the same time, a faint starlight from the 9 heavens appeared around the golden light, and the power of the stars seeped into the god-binding chains, giving off a domineering aura. The light on the testing stone continued to expand until it turned purple. Then, blue starlight appeared above the purple. It was a spectacular sight. Wow, it can't be? Zhou Yao was dumbfounded. Bai Lifu's eyes also widened. Could it be? Deacon's god-binding chain has surpassed the first-grade martial spirit? Gu Yang's hands were trembling, and he was very excited. Yu's god-binding chain seems to have changed. Yes. Chu Chu smiled as if he was looking at a fire. I don't know why, but the star arts that IU cultivates can actually fuse with the god-binding shackles, causing the star arts that are infused with the god-binding shackles to be even more overbearing. This is really a stroke of luck. The power of the god-binding shackles is indeed above the first class of martial spirits. Deacon Guyang, how do you think we should classify it? Gu Yang's breathing was a little hurried, and his face was red. This is a miracle. In the history of the Holy Temple, there has never been a situation like this. A martial spirit that surpasses the first grade. Are we going to create a new classification for martial spirits? Chu Chu smiled. That's not impossible. Deacon Guyang, don't be too excited. I can boldly tell you that after Her Highness Yin cultivates the dragon beheading art, her god-binding chain seems to have been strengthened by the dragon beheading art, and its power is also slightly higher than the first grade. If we really want to create a new classification, then Yu and Xiao Yin's martial spirits are enough to be classified as martial spirits of the first grade. Lin Muyu coughed. Deacon Guyang, then let's do it. Martial spirits of the first grade? It sounds a little stronger than the first grade martial spirit. Hey, this old man obeys. Guyang immediately wrote martial spirits of the first grade on the draft of the 10,000 soul canon and raised his head, but, as they are both god-binding chains, how should we name them? Chu Chu pondered for a moment, then said, Yu's martial spirit shall be named Star God-binding chains, and Xiao Yin's martial spirit shall be named True Dragon God-binding chains. This is also in line with the will of the heavens. Her Highness Yin has the bloodline of an emperor and the body of a true dragon, so she is probably the only one who can cultivate the true dragon god-binding chains. Lin Muyu happily returned to her seat and sat down again, then said, I can finally hold my head high. Super First Grade Star God-binding chains, First Grade 7 Luminaries Immortal Gourd. From now on, my name will be written in the annals of the cultivation world of the Empire, right? Chu Chu couldn't help but laugh. Not only the annals of the cultivation world, even the annals of the Empire will definitely have a page of your name. Maybe later generations of historians will even write a personal chronicle for you. That is a rare honor. The Empire has existed for thousands of years, but only a few dozen people have had the honor of writing a chronicle. Lin Muyu said with a smile, Fame to me is like a floating cloud in the sky. Before she could finish, a temple guard outside said respectfully, Grand Deacon, Princess Tang Xiaoxi requests an audience. Ah, Xiaoxi is back? Yes, she is just outside the hall. Let her know? I'll go get her. Lin Muyu didn't even care about the dragon spirit sword on the table and flew out of the main hall. Chu Chu, Guyang, Zhou Yao, and the others all smiled knowingly. Although Lin Muyu was now the Grand Deacon of the temple and one of the commanders of the Empire's major armies, she was still a hot-blooded young man after all. Outside the Grand Hall, the cold wind was blowing, causing Tang Xiaoxi's white leather robes to flutter lightly. Tang Xiaoxi stood gracefully on Skyspan Street, the strong wind causing her to blink her eyes repeatedly, her long eyelashes seeming to struggle in the strong wind. It was only when Lin Muyu walked out, dressed in the white robes of the imperial forest, that Tang Xiaoxi's eyes lit up. Seeing the person she had been thinking about day and night had a completely new demeanor, it was as if her heart was about to melt. It's cold outside, let's talk inside. Lin Muyu gently grabbed her hand and led her into the temple. Suddenly, Tang Xiaoxi blushed and her heart was as warm as the sun. Behind them, a group of generals of the state army and several guards of the temple were all smiling. Everyone in Lanyan City knew that Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi had a very close relationship. They also knew that Lin Muyu, the foster son of the former emperor, had a very good relationship with the current emperor, Qin Yin. Therefore, almost every man in Lanyan City was envious of Lin Muyu, who had two supreme beauties in the imperial capital. This was something that ordinary people dared not think about. Xiao Yin, you must have something to do in Lanyan City, right? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Can't I come to you if I have nothing to do? Tang Xiaoxi looked at her with a hidden bitterness. Lin Muyu smiled and said, How's the matter of the demon clan in the Forest of Infinity? It's all right. Tang Xiaoxi gently held his arm. Suddenly, her eyes turned red and she said, I heard that you went to the Iha kingdom. It's all right, it's all right. Lin Muyu patted the back of her hand and said, I've brought Brother Qin Lei's head back and buried it under the national monument. If I don't do this, I won't be able to rest in peace. Xiao Shi, you must be able to understand me. But Tang Xiaoxi wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Let's talk about the demon clan. Lin Muyu smiled and said, the demon clan's Marshal Qianfeng has deliberately built all kinds of siege weapons, planning to attack the empire's territory from the west. I'm worried that once the demon clan really succeeds in their invasion, our human army's power will be unable to resist them. At that time, I'm afraid we'll have to rely on the demon clan's military power. The demon clan isn't having an easy time either. Tang Xiaoxi pursed her red lips and said, the temperature in the Forest of Infinity is unpredictable. This spring and summer, the sun has been blazing in the sky and there's very little rain, resulting in a severe drought. The wild plants in the forest have a very poor harvest, so the food for the demon clan has become very little. Autumn has just arrived, and it's snowing continuously. The entire west of the demon-subduing pass has become a sea of snow. A few days before I came, thousands of demon clans starved to death. So this time, I came to Lanyan City to borrow food from Xiao Yin. Lin Muyu was slightly stunned. She touched her nose and said, Shall I accompany you to see Xiao Yin? Chapter 417. Borrow Rations? In Zetian Hall, several important officials of the empire stood on the left and right while Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi stood together in the center aisle, looking up at Qin Yin on the throne. Tang Lan seemed to be the most sensitive about borrowing rations. After all, he was in charge of the Ministry of Revenue. What's wrong, Duke Lan? Qin Yin was surprised. Can't the Empire even provide 3 million caddies of rations? Your Highness. Tang Lan looked troubled. After your Highness ascended the throne, you pardoned the world and reduced taxes by half. Therefore, the Ministry of Revenue's funds and rations are very tight. 3 million caddies of rations may not seem much, but Your Highness might not know this. A soldier's rations are about 2 caddies a day, and the rations of 10,000 soldiers are 20,000 caddies a day. The Empire has a total of 200,000 soldiers stationed around the Empire, and we have to provide 400,000 caddies of rations to these troops every day. We are already tight on rations, and if we give it to the demons, I'm afraid, Tang Xiaoxi bit her red lips and said, but these 3 million caddies of rations are too important to the demons. It can even save 100,000 demon casualties, Lin Muyu interceded. Duke Lan, you are in charge of the Ministry of Revenue. If you squeeze a little, you should be able to gather 3 million caddies of rations, right? If you really can't, we can always buy it with money. Tang Lan cupped his fists and said, Commander, you might not know this, but Lanyan City's harvest today isn't too good. Moreover, to transport rations from Lanyan City to the Forest of Infinity, war chariots can't be used in the forest, so we can only rely on commoners to carry them. With the commoners' speed, it will take at least 15 days to reach the Forest of Infinity. They have to eat 1 caddy of rations a day, which means 15 caddies of rations in 15 days, and 30 caddies for a round trip. A commoner can only carry 60 caddies at most, so transporting rations to the demons isn't 3 million caddies, but 6 million caddies. Tang Xiaoxi's pretty face darkened. But Grandpa, Tang Lan looked at Tang Xiaoxi, the granddaughter he doted on the most, and his gaze couldn't help but soften. But Xiaoxi, don't worry, grandfather will think of a way for you. For these 6 million caddies, the National Treasury will provide 2 million caddies, and grandfather will help you gather the remaining 4 million caddies. Don't worry, the first batch of grain will be on the road tomorrow. As she spoke, Tang Lan looked at Qin Yin respectfully and said, Your Highness, I wonder if this is appropriate. Qin Yin nodded and smiled. The monster race is our vassal nation. We should help them. As long as we can save the monster race, anything is fine. Thank you, Master Lan, for putting in so much effort for the nation. Tang Lan, thank you, Your Highness, for understanding this old subject. Oh right, is there anything else? Tang Lan cupped her fists and said, Recently, the Longdan army camp seems to have built quite a number of camps at the edge of the forest north of Lanyan City. When this old subject's men patrolled the city, they saw many people who didn't belong to the imperial army holding weapons and wearing armor, practicing fighting tactics. There were quite a number of them, at least 30,000. Moreover, the North Ridge Mercenary Corps seemed to be there as well. Does Your Highness know about this? Qin Yin was taken aback. I know. Those are the reserve forces of the Longdan army camp. But Your Highness. Tang Lan raised her head and said, The Empire's military law strictly stipulates the number of people in each legion. Once someone privately recruits soldiers, it will be seen as a rebellion. Your Highness, please investigate this. If that's the case. Qin Yin stood up slowly, her eyes full of smiles. The Longdan Army Camp Commander Lin Muyu has made great contributions in saving the nation. The Longdan Army Camp has defeated the Demon Race and Iha Nation's armies on the Qinling Mountains, greatly raising the nation's prestige. Immediately draft a decree to expand the Longdan Army Camp to an upper limit of 50,000 people. This is in line with the will of heaven and the will of the people. I believe Master Lan and Grandfather will not have any objections, right? Tang Lan was taken aback. Su Muyun bowed calmly but didn't say anything. On the other hand, a few generals of the Su family showed indignant expressions. One of them was Su Long, the commander of the Steel Blade Army of Muyu City. He cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, the Empire is currently experiencing a disaster of food shortage. It doesn't seem right to expand the army when the people don't have enough to eat. I hope Your Highness can consider the people. Is that so? Qin Yin looked at Su Long and said, Master Lan, Grandfather, actually Xiao Yin has a decision. I plan to reduce the salaries of all the officials of the Empire by 20% from next month onwards. This money will be used to encourage farming, planting, and other businesses. What do you think? Su Muyun bowed and said, I support Your Highness' decision. I'm just worried that those officials who are used to living a good life will not be convinced. It's okay. They will be convinced. Qin Yin smiled and said, Draft an imperial decree. When the empire is in danger, all the officials' salaries will be reduced by 20%. In addition, the Ministry of War will provide all the weapons, food, and horses needed for the expansion of the Longdan army camp. Do not neglect them. Everyone cupped their fists and said, Yes, Your Highness. At the side, the Minister of War, Xueling, looked at Lin Muyu with a smile and said, Congratulations, Commander Yu. You have finally been promoted from a battalion commander to a corps commander. According to the Empire's military system, an army with less than 20,000 people could only be considered a battalion. An army with more than 20,000 people could be called a corps. There was no upper limit to the number of people in a corps. The prestige and authority of a corps commander was obviously much higher than that of a battalion commander. The biggest beneficiary of the expansion of the Longdan army camp was undoubtedly Lin Muyu. Currently, he was an indispensable existence in the Empire's army. Thank you, Sir Xueling, Lin Muyu smiled humbly and said, In the future, we will still have to rely on Sir Xueling to take care of the Longdan army camp. Otherwise, we will not be able to provide food and weapons. This number of people will be useless. Xueling laughed and said, Don't worry, Commander. This is a decree personally issued by His Highness. I will definitely take care of it personally. I will not let the Longdan army camp be neglected in terms of military supplies. And, thank you. In the afternoon, 100 carriages full of food left Lanyan City for the demon-subduing pass. Tang Lan valued Tang Xiaoxi's affairs very much. This efficiency was really admirable. According to Tang Xiaoxi's order, after this batch of food arrived at the demon-subduing pass, the guardian army of Tang Town would send it to the Forest of Infinity. The demon tribe in the Forest of Infinity would also send people to receive it. In this way, the rations and manpower of the people could be saved. It was not as terrible as Tang Xiaoxi described. However, it seemed that Tang Xiaoxi still could not forgive Tang Lan. She only promised him to go back to the Duke's mansion for dinner at night. In the afternoon, she still followed Lin Muyu with dozens of guards. In the afternoon, Lin Muyu's task was to check the newly built Longdan army camp. In fact, he was very worried. Although Situ Sin used to be a senior imperial general, he had been a big hooligan for 4 years after all. His way of doing things had gradually changed. He was not like Wei Chou, Feng Shi, and the others who scrupulously abided by their duties. As expected, the newly built Longdan army camp outside the northern part of the city was very chaotic. Lin Muyu led a 1,000-man Longdan army camp heavy cavalry into the camp slowly. On both sides of the camp were tents that were randomly set up, and the mud on the ground had not been filled up. In the wilderness, many Heaven Execution Society disciples from the slums were fighting over the few pieces of armor and emblems of the Longdan army camp. All of them were red in the face from arguing. On the other side, there was a bard sitting in the mud playing the horsehead zither. A group of recruits from the Longdan army camp surrounded him and cheered. Further away, there were a few burly recruits wrestling. Some even started a bet. Tang Xiaoxi looked around with her bright eyes and couldn't help but laugh. I say, Commander Mu, your recruits from the Longdan army camp look really good. I really don't know how you are going to train them in the future. Lin Muyu's face was ashen. I'm so angry. Someone, where's Situ Sin? Get him here. Yes, Commander. In the chaotic crowd, Situ Sin rode over on his horse. He wore a captaincy rank with 2 gold stars on his neck. He was wearing a fiery red general robe of the Longdan army camp. He cupped his fists respectfully and said, Greetings, Commander. Senior, Lin Muyu pointed at the group of people in the camp and said, Are these the recruits you brought me? You used to be a general of the Empire. Is there anyone who leads troops like you? Situ Sin said solemnly, Commander, you don't know that these people were originally ruffians. It's not easy to train them into real soldiers of the Empire. It can't be done in a day or two. Since they can't adapt to the barracks life for the time being, and there are no concubines in the Longdan army camp, I have allowed them to go to the flower restaurant in Lanyan City twice a week. If conditions permit, they can have a concubine, but they can't bring her into the barracks. They are allowed to fight once every 3 days, but they can't be killed. They are allowed to pick their nostrils during combat training, but not more than 3 times a day. Lin Muyu was so angry that she almost fainted. Situ Sin, you treat my Longdan army camp as a cattle farm. Wei Chou also said, Situ Sin, is there anyone who leads troops like you? Situ Sin immediately glared at him and said, Wei Chou, don't think that you're great just because you're the deputy commander. Let me tell you, Situ Sin, can defeat you within 3 moves with 50% of my strength. The commander can scold me, Situ Sin, but you, Wei Chou, don't have the right to do so. Wei Chou almost died of anger. Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes and asked, General Situ Sin, are you really going to lead troops like this? Can such a Longdan army camp really fight against the demons? I'm very worried. Situ Sin cupped his fists respectfully and smiled. His eyes were full of deep meaning. He said, Commander, if you trust me, citizen, then give me the full authority to train the new soldiers. Don't worry. Once we really fight against the demons, I can guarantee that these grandsons will immediately forget about the prostitutes in the brothel. They will carry their weapons and risk their lives to fight against the demons with us. Lin Muyu nodded approvingly and said with a smile, Perhaps only blood can let them know what war is like. There will be such an opportunity. Situ Sin nodded. Commander, further north is the camp of Ah Shui's 3rd Corps. North Ridge Mercenary Group will definitely satisfy you. Yes, let's go. Chapter 418. Although the 3rd Legion's camp was messy, it wasn't chaotic. The barracks were neat and tidy. From afar, the North Ridge Mercenary Group's mercenaries had already removed the mercenary badges on their shoulders and were training their combat skills in a row of 100 people. Moreover, this group of mercenaries was originally equipped. After all, they were the top mercenary group in Lanyan City, so their combat strength would definitely not be weak. Sidu Shui rode her horse over with a face full of smiles. With twin blades hanging from her waist, she bowed respectfully and said, "I'm Sidu Shui. Greetings, Commander." "Greetings. This is?" Tang Xiaoxi smiled and said, "Tang Xiaoxi. So you're Princess Shi." Situ Shui looked at her in high spirits and said with a smile, "Princess, she led the Demon Clan and the National Garrison Army to recover Lanyan City during the crisis. Your name has long spread throughout the empire. I'm Situ Shui. Greetings, Princess Shi." "No need to stand on ceremony." Tang Xiaoxi chuckled. "You're Mu's woman, which means you're my friend. We'll be family from now on. Thank you for your trust, Princess Shi." Tang Xiaoxi blinked and suddenly asked, "Oh yes, your North Ridge Mercenary Group is known as the top mercenary group in North Ridge Province. You've been living a carefree life in Xiaoyao. Why did you join the Longdan army camp and be restricted by the Empire's military system?" Sidu Shui was stunned. She cupped her fists and said, "Princess, the first reason is that although mercenaries are very free, they're like a group of soulless walking corpses. They don't know what they're fighting for. Sidu Shui wants to become an imperial general and lead the brothers to fight for the empire. The second reason is that Sidu Shui wants to be together with my brother, Sidu Senator. The third reason is that the only person who can easily defeat Sidu Shui, who is noble and uncorrupted, is Commander Yu. Therefore, Sidu Shui is willing to give her life to Commander Yu." "He's noble and uncorrupted?" Tang Xiaoxi glanced at Lin Muyu and couldn't help but chuckle. "This fellow is very cunning. You'll know in the future." Cough cough. Lin Muyu coughed and said, "Don't destroy my glorious image in the eyes of my subordinates." "All right, General Shui, continue with your training. I'll accompany Princess Shi to walk around. The flag and emblem of the Longdan army camp are being made and will be sent over soon. As for the uniform armor and weapons, it'll take some time. Please wait patiently." "Yes, Commander." Sidu Shui cupped her fists respectfully. Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu left the camp slowly. Tang Xiaoxi pouted and said, "Mu, you're such a playboy. Does this Sidu Shui like you too?" "No, don't let your imagination run wild," Lin Muyu said righteously. "She only admires my sacred domain strength." "Humph, I'd be a fool to believe you." Wei Chou and Fengxi snickered at the back. At this point, the 3 major armies of the Longdan army camp were officially established. The first army was led by Wei Chou and had 20,000 people after recruitment. The second army was led by Situ Sen and had 15,000 people. The third army was led by Situ Shui and also had 15,000 people. There were a total of 50,000 people in the army, and it quickly became one of the bravest main armies in the empire. When it was close to evening, Tang Xiaoxi invited Lin Muyu to the Duke's mansion in Seven Seas City to participate in the family banquet. Initially, Lin Muyu refused, but seeing Tang Xiaoxi's pitiful look, she had no choice but to follow. She knew that Tang Lu and Tang Tian wouldn't treat her well, but she was worried that something might happen to Tang Xiaoxi, so she had no choice but to follow. At night, the lanterns in Lanyan City were lit, and the night sky was as mesmerizing as a noble lady's evening gown. The sound of horse hooves was a little chaotic. Su Jiantao led 100 cavalrymen and escorted them to the Duke's mansion, but he was sent back by Lin Muyu. After all, Lin Muyu already had a sacred domain cultivation base. In addition to the first grade 7 luminaries Immortal Gourd and the first grade Star God binding chains, there weren't many people in the empire who could do anything to him, not to mention that Tang Xiaoxi was by his side. "Princess, Commander Yu, you're here." The person in charge of receiving them was the Duke's mansion's beautiful supervisor, and she seemed to be a member of the Tang family. She looked to be in her 30s and had a good temperament, but her smile hid too much of her true emotions. "Let's go in." Tang Xiaoxi nodded with a smile. Lin Muyu handed the treading snow warhorse to a servant and followed Tang Xiaoxi into the mansion. The main hall was brightly lit, and attendants walked in and out. Although the rebuilt Duke's mansion wasn't as luxurious as LV Zhao's mansion, it was still as luxurious as a marquis's mansion. Tang Lan came out to welcome them, followed by Tang Lu, Tang Tian, and Tang Wei. Tang Xiaoxi's actions after recapturing Lanyan City made Tang Lu and Tang Tian feel disgusted. Perhaps they didn't consider Tang Xiaoxi as a member of the Tang family. Only Tang Lan's old eyes were cloudy. He looked at Tang Xiaoxi, then looked at Lin Muyu, and suddenly said, "You also came?" Lin Muyu respectfully said, "I pay my respects to Duke Lan. There's no need to be so polite. Come in, we can have a meal together as a family." Tang Lan said meaningfully. Lin Muyu was startled, but she didn't pursue the matter. She accompanied Tang Xiaoxi into the main hall, and the aroma of delicious food assaulted their nostrils. This table was filled with rare delicacies. The Seven Seas province was rich and populous, and the Tang family's wealth was something ordinary people couldn't hope to achieve. Lin Muyu only took a glance at the table and saw that there were many rare wild animals, melons, and fruits on the table. The price of this table of food was at least 2,000 Jin coins. Just this table of food was enough for an ordinary family of 4 to live for 400 years. However, there was another person who was also invited. This caused Lin Muyu to be somewhat surprised. It was actually Xiangyu. However, after thinking about it carefully, it was reasonable. It was just that Lin Muyu was Tang Xiaoxi's best friend, and what kind of status did Xiangyu have to be considered a family member by the Tang family? After everyone sat down, the attendants poured wine for them. Tang Lan's hand trembled as she held the wine cup and said, "It's rare for Xiaoxi to come home for a meal today. Come, let's not go home until we're drunk." After downing the wine, Tang Lan sat down. The scene was a little awkward. Tang Lu and Tang Tian naturally didn't have good intentions towards Lin Muyu. In fact, they didn't even want to see this person present. Tang Lu rubbed his nose and said with a smile, "Today is a family banquet. I wonder if Xiaoxi has already prepared to marry Commander Yu since she brought him back? This wedding will definitely cause a sensation in Lanyan City, right?" Tang Xiaoxi was startled. Clearly, she didn't expect Tang Lu to say such a thing. However, she also knew that the person Lin Muyu deeply loved was Qin Yin. She knew that the chances of them being together were minuscule. For a moment, she didn't know how to answer. Fortunately, Lin Muyu smiled and said, "As for the matters of children, we'll talk about it after we recover the Iha nation and eliminate the demons. I hope that Duke Lan can understand all of Xiaoxi's actions." Tang Lan nodded and said, "This old man knows that Xiaoxi has always been the apple of this old man's eye. She's my pride." Tang Tian's smile was full of bad intentions as he said, "Commander Yu has already become a true army commander. The Longdan army camp is doted on by the Empress alone. I presume that Commander Yu has already become a famous general of the Empire in the future. I wonder what Commander Yu thinks about the war between the Empire and the demons?" This, Lin Muyu frowned and said, "The demons are powerful. They can't be defeated overnight. Let's take it slowly. I only hope that the Ministry of Works can develop more powerful weapons to make up for the gap between the physiques of us ordinary people and the demons' armor demons." Tang Lan smiled and said, "Today, we're eating together, let's not talk about national affairs. Alright, I want to announce something. In the first half of next month, choose a good and auspicious day to hold the wedding of General Xiangyu and Tang Wei." Tang Xiaoxi was surprised. "Tang Wei, you want to marry Xiangyu?" Tang Wei was sitting beside Xiangyu. She blushed and nodded and said, "Yes, grandfather has already betrothed me to General Xiangyu." Xiangyu stood up and cupped his fists majestically and said, "This general will definitely not disappoint Duke Lan's good intentions. I will naturally treat Princess Tang Wei well in the future and treat her as my everything. I will never let the Tang family down." Good. Tang Lan said, "Good," 3 times in a row. Then he looked at Lin Muyu meaningfully and said, "Commander Yu, the demons are powerful. The Yihe nation is still in the ascendant. The empire is still on the brink of life and death. You, me, and General Xiang Yu are all generals of the empire with military power. At this moment, we should put aside our previous enmity and work together for the empire. What do you think? Lin Muyu cupped her fists and said, Duke Lan is right. Tang Lan narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, with Tang Bin's death, one of the 3 Tang sect iron medallions has lost its owner. I am old and don't have much time left. The only thing I am worried about is the Tang family and Xiaoxi. I know that you mistakenly killed Tang Bin to save Xiaoxi. Now that time has passed, I don't want to pursue this matter too much. I only hope that you, the outstanding generals of the empire, can turn the tide and save the empire from disaster. Duke Lan, what do you want to say? Please say it directly. Okay. Tang Lan took a deep breath and said, although I hope that you will marry Xiaoxi in the future, the heavens have no control over us. So, I hope that you can become sworn siblings with Xiaoxi and swear that you will never betray Xiaoxi and the Tang sect. I will bestow the last Tang sect iron medallion to you. You can mobilize the troops of the 7 Seas Tang sect as you please. What do you think? Lin Muyu's heart was in turmoil. After a few seconds, she said softly, I understand Duke Lan's good intentions, and Xiaoxi also has deep feelings for me. I will never regret betraying Xiaoxi, but I am Qin Jin's adopted son. Qin Jin doesn't treat me well, but he trusts me very much. Furthermore, my brothers, Chu Huayin and Qin Lei, have already died for this empire. I'm afraid that I can only be loyal to the Qin family for the rest of my life. However, Duke Lan is also a subject of the empire, so you will definitely be loyal to the empire like me. So, what difference is there between being loyal to the Qin family and being loyal to the Tang sect? Tang Lan fell silent, and his eyes were filled with confusion. He picked up his chopsticks and said, Let's eat. Let's not talk about national affairs anymore. Chapter 419. Ever since Tang Xiaoxi borrowed food, 2 months had passed in the blink of an eye. Spring was already blooming in Lanyan City. The training in the Longdan army camp was getting better day by day. The entire army was equipped with armor and weapons, and the group of hooligans had also been trained by Seducen and looked like the Empire army. The Empire, Yihe country, and the demon race were all in a state of hibernation. After the Thunder Rush army defeated Long Qianlin's dragon riders, the Yihe country had been in a state of defense, while the demon race took advantage of the situation to sweep nearly 1/5 of the Yihe country's land and then began to recuperate. The armor demons had no food in winter and could not fight at all. It seemed that the demon race was also waiting for the right opportunity. In the morning, the holy temple was quiet. The birds were chirping happily and the flowers were exuding a refreshing fragrance. Lin Muyu woke up from a pile of files again and rubbed her eyes. At this time, the voice of the holy temple guard came from outside the door. Great Deacon, the Zetian temple has sent someone to invite you over for a discussion. They want you to go immediately and not delay. Got it. After washing up, Lin Muyu put on the white robe Imperial Forest armor and left the sacred hall on treading snow. Moreover, she was alone. With her current cultivation, Lin Muyu was not worried that anyone would assassinate her. Even if she came, she would only be courting death. When she arrived at the Zetian temple, she saw Feng Jixing rubbing his sleepy eyes and yawning as he walked on the stone steps. Brother Feng. Lin Muyu caught up and handed the warhorse to the attendant. What's the matter? Why did Xiao Yin send someone to call us over so early in the morning? I don't know either. Most likely there's a war in the distance. Let's go in. Okay. In the main hall, after waiting for a while, Su Miyun, Tang Lan, and the others also arrived. What's the matter, Xiao Yin? Lin Muyu could not help but ask. Qin Yin saw that almost everyone had arrived and said, We received a letter from the demon suppression pass this morning. There's a war in the west of the empire. The endless forest? Feng Jixing asked. Qin Yin nodded and said, It's spring now, the season when the young and the yellow are not in contact. Many places are suffering from famine, but it's not as bad as the forest of infinity. At the same time, It also proves that there are still races living in the west of the Forest of Infinity. Ah! Feng Jixing was stunned. Isn't it said that the west of the Forest of Infinity is a boundless, uninhabited desert? Who else could it be? We were all wrong. Qin Yin's expression was dignified as she said, at the end of the desert, there is another race called the Great Savage Tribe. That is a race that lives in the savage land. The humans there are very tall. The book said that the soldiers of the savage tribe are generally nearly 3 meters tall and have extraordinary strength. They are extremely hungry and came all the way from the desert to the endless forest to plunder the food of the demon race. At this moment, Xiaoxi has already led the country army and the demon race to war with the great savage tribe, but the result is still uncertain. Tang Lan asked anxiously, "How is the battle situation?" Qin Yin handed the letter to the female official and said, "Everyone take a look." In the end, the letter did not mention the battle situation and only said that the great savage tribe's battle power was very shocking and there were more than 30,000 people. Even though the demon race's snakeman army was strong, they did not seem to be a match for them. Tang Xiaoxi requested that if Lanyan City had sufficient troops, they should send reinforcements. Tang Lan clenched the letter tightly and said, "Xiaoxi is a strong child and will not ask us for help unless it's a last resort. This hateful great savage tribe. Your Highness, please send the Empire's army as reinforcements. Otherwise, once the demon race and the country army are destroyed, I'm afraid that our western border will fall. At that time, the great savage tribe, demon race and Iha country will attack from 3 sides and the Empire will be powerless to turn the situation around." Qin Yin's gaze was faint as she said, "Reinforcements are certain, but I have not made a decision yet as to which army is the best to send." In the crowd, Su Yun cupped his fists and said, "This general is willing to lead the Steel Blade army to reinforce Princess Xi." Tang Lan frowned and said, "No, the Steel Blade army is responsible for guarding the Yudao River defensive line and cannot leave at will. In my opinion, it is better to let the Marquis of Pingnan, Xiangyu, lead 50,000 Songnan province's army as reinforcements. Xiangyu's talent is enough to stand proudly in the world and be able to contend against the great savage tribe." Qin Yin nodded her head. "Good is good, but the great savage tribe is too strong and General Xiangyu has just married not long ago. I'm afraid that this will inconvenience Princess Wei." Xiangyu cupped his fists and said, "This general is the Empire's general and will shed blood for the Empire. Pleading for your Highness to give the order. This subordinate will immediately gather the Songnan province's army and head to the western border." Feng Jixing frowned and said, "Your Highness, this general has something to say." "General Feng, please speak." Qin Yin said with a smile. Feng Jixing said, "As everyone knows, Qianfeng has amassed nearly 200,000 demon soldiers in the eastern border of Songnan province. They can invade the border at any time and Songnan province is the strongest support of the Yudao River defensive line. If the Songnan province's army is mobilized, what will happen if the demon race attacks the city? So, this general thinks that we should let Commander Yu's Longdan army camp head to the western border and have a showdown with the great savage tribe." Qin Yin nodded her head and smiled. "General Feng's words are reasonable. Grandfather, what do you think?" Su Muyun muttered, "Xiangyu and Lin Muyu are both famous generals of the present age. In fact, either one of them can go. Why don't we draw straws?" But Qin Yin took 2 pieces of paper and wrote, "Go," and "Don't go" on them. She handed them to a female official who walked forward and said with a smile, "Commander Yu, please draw one." Lin Muyu drew one and Xiangyu also drew one. In the end, Xiangyu wrote, "Go," on his paper while Lin Muyu wrote, "Don't go." After all, Xiangyu wasn't Zhang Fei and Qin Yin wasn't Zhuge Liang. "That's good." Tang Lan clapped her hands and smiled. "Then Marquis Pingnan, Xiangyu will lead the army. Your Highness, please give the order." Qin Yin nodded. "Draft an edict to order Marquis Pingnan, Xiangyu to gather 50,000 men and horses to the endless forest in the western border to reinforce Princess Xi. They are to set off immediately without delay." All the necessary rations and weapons will be provided by the Ministry of War. Xiang Yu had a smile on his face. But at this moment, the sound of horse hooves suddenly came from outside the hall. A messenger ran into the hall panting and said, "Bad news. Your Highness, bad news." "What is it?" "The steel wall has sent a letter. There are movements from the demon race. Qianfeng is leading a 150,000 army to approach Dao River and is about to launch an attack." "Bring up the letter." "Yes." Qin Yin swept a glance at the letter and her face was slightly pale as she muttered, "The demon race finally attacked." Everyone was shocked and many of the generals' faces revealed a look of fear, especially those who had fought with the demon race before. They understood what kind of concept Qianfeng and 150,000 demon army was. This was simply a destructive force. As long as they crossed Dao River and broke through the steel wall, the empire would be finished. At this time, almost everyone placed their hopes on the steel wall that was built with 500 million Jinin coins. Qin Yin seemed to be somewhat tired as she quietly sat on the throne and said faintly, "Qianfeng is attacking the empire again. Tell me, what should we do?" Su Myun cupped his fists. "Your Highness, the demon race must be resisted and the demon race must be saved. This old official thinks that it is no longer suitable to change the military strength in Sangnan province and the Longdan army camp will be stationed near Lanyan city. Commander, you will lead 50,000 Longdan army camp to reinforce the demon race while the rest of the country's military strength will be concentrated on Dao River and fight to the death with the demon race." Qin Yin nodded and suddenly stood up and said in a dignified manner, "Like what Duke Yun said, Longdan army camp will send out troops to subdue Demon Pass and the rest of the country's military strength will fight to the death with the demon race. I will personally go to the steel wall to supervise the battle. If this battle is not won, the empire will perish." Everyone cupped their fists together and said, "We are willing to fight to the death with the demon race." In the main hall, only Lin Muyu stood there in a daze. He knew how powerful the demon race was and he wanted to compete with Qianfeng even more. But with the current situation, he was afraid that everything was out of his control. Late at night, the sound of horse hooves did not stop. A large number of Imperial Guards and Longdan army camp soldiers galloped across Tongtian Street and went straight to the city gate. They were followed by a large number of war chariots escorting provisions and weapons. The war was urgent and did not allow for any delay. Outside the city, beside a carriage with a canopy, Qin Yin was dressed in a dark blue robe. Under the moonlight, she looked at Lin Muyu's face faintly, as if she was afraid that she would not be able to see him in the next moment. Feng Jixing stood to the side with his warhorse. He rubbed his nose and said with a sigh, "It is too difficult to meet, and it is too painful to be separated. Cherish this moment." Lin Muyu placed her hand on the hilt of the sword at her waist and squeezed out a smile. "Xiao Yin, don't worry about me. The great savage tribe is only a barbarian tribe after all. Their battle strength is limited. I will definitely win in the first battle. After I subdue the great savage tribe, I will immediately lead the Longdan army camp back and go to the steel wall to pick you up." "Yes, you must come." Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were covered with a layer of mist, but she did not cry. It seemed that these years of tempering had made her more and more like a queen and not a little girl who only knew how to act coquettishly. Lin Muyu looked at Feng Jixing again and said, "Big brother Feng, the hard armor of the demon tribe is very hard. It is difficult for ordinary weapons to pierce through it. I have a total of 300,000 white diamond arrows. I will give you half. Take care of yourself. In the days that I am not around, I will entrust Xiao Yin to you." Feng Jixing's nose turned sour, and he laughed loudly. "Don't worry, you leave sister-in-law to me." Qin Yin's face instantly turned red. "General Feng, what are you saying?" "Your Highness, I will die." "All right." Lin Muyu turned over and mounted the horse. She stretched out her hand to hold Qin Yin's small hand and reluctantly let go. She said, "The mountains are long and the rivers are far. We must all take care of ourselves. We will meet again in Lanyan City. All of you must come back alive to see me." Qin Yin's shoulders trembled slightly. Looking at Lin Muyu's clear eyes under the moonlight, she felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. How could they stay together in troubled times? The most they could do was to enjoy themselves. When Lin Muyu led Wei Chou and others to disappear into the night, Qin Yin finally could not help sobbing in a low voice and crying. Feng Jixing stayed by her side, but he did not know how to comfort her. He just said, "Your Highness, we are going to battle." Chapter 420. It was spring in the Demon Suppression Pass, and flowers were blooming outside the pass. However, there was an aura of death in the air. Almost all the prey in the Endless Forest had been hunted by the Demon Clan, and only the ancient trees and endless grassland were left. Lin Muyu rode treading snow into the Demon Suppression Pass slowly. She did not stop and led the heavy cavalry of the Longdan army camp through the Demon Suppression Pass and arrived outside the pass. In the distance, a group of Demon Clan troops were waiting. Tang Xiaoxi was waiting there in a white robe, and beside her were Linghu Yen, Tang Jin, and a few Naga generals. Lin Muyu looked at the Nagas and found that they were so thin that only snake bones were left. Their faces were sallow and emaciated, and they did not even have the strength to spit. Ever since Tang Xiaoxi ordered the Nagas and lizardmen not to eat humans, the Nagas could only eat rats, rabbits, and other animals in the forest. This year was a famine, and they had almost eaten all the animals in the endless forest. Tang Jin gently cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, Commander Yu." Wei Chou, Sidu Sen, Sidu Shui, Feng Shi, and the others also cupped their fists and said respectfully, "Greetings, Princess Shi." Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu nodded at the same time. Lin Muyu frowned and looked at the endless forest in the distance and said, "Xiao Shi, what's the situation here? Where are the savage tribe?" "They are stationed in the Coiling Dragon Valley, a valley in the southwest of the Endless Forest. The Demon Clan and the National Army are fighting against them. By the way, Mu, how much food did you bring?" "Not much, but there will be more later. Let's go first. I want to see how powerful the savage tribe is." "Okay, let's go." Tang Xiaoxi led the 50,000 people of the Longdan army camp straight into the Endless Forest. The sound of horse hooves was dense. After a few years, the Endless Forest had opened up a road for cavalry to gallop freely. This must be the credit of Tang Xiaoxi and Tang Jin. After riding for a day and a night, they entered the depths of the Endless Forest. Flowers bloomed everywhere, and the scenery was breathtakingly beautiful. However, Lin Muyu also noticed that there were very few hares, wild boars, and wild deer along the way. Even if there were one or two hares that scuttled past, they would immediately be shot down by the tray ant. The tray ant carried the prey over and offered it to the Naga generals. These Naga generals did not stand on ceremony. They used their scimitars to cut the hares into pieces and swallowed them with blood and fur. Wei Qiu, Sidu Sen, and the others all frowned. After all, they were of different races. Looking at the appearance of the serpent men eating made them want to vomit. Moreover, they could imagine that in the past, when the demon race and humans fought, the corpses of the humans were also swallowed by the serpent men like this. It was truly somewhat terrifying. Tang Xiaoxi pointed to the front and said, "We are almost there." The Coiling Dragon Valley is surrounded by mountains on all sides, and there are only two paths connecting the north and south. In the past half a month, the savage tribe has attacked our camp many times. Both sides have suffered losses. In the forest, the war flags of the Great Qin Empire fluttered in the wind. They had arrived at the camp, and it was just a huge camp made of logs. It didn't have much defensive power. In terms of defensive power, the sharpened wooden antlers outside the camp were the only defensive fortifications, and they couldn't be any more crude. Tang Jin rubbed his nose awkwardly and said, "The National Army is short of resources, and we were in a hurry to fight. This is all we could do. I hope, Commander, you will not laugh at us. It is already good that you can defend it. No need to blame yourselves." Lin Muyu's voice was very gentle. After the army slowly entered the camp, Wei Chou looked around and said, "Commander, this place is a good place, and it is spring. The fodder for the war horses is not a problem, we can graze them everywhere, But the food for the soldiers will be a big problem. Our supply route is relatively long, and also relatively slow. I am afraid that we will not be able to support the food needs of nearly 200,000 human clan and goblin clan army. Then try to find a way. Send out scouts to observe the surroundings. Assemble the arrow boxes. They may be used at any time. This subordinate understands. In the central tent, before they sat down, the sound of war drums came from afar. Tang Jin immediately frowned and said, "These bastard barbarians. We have been traveling for a day and night, and we haven't even had the time to close our eyes. They actually attacked again." "Is this the sound of the savage tribe's attack?" Lin Muyu asked. "Then don't rest." Lin Muyu ordered, "Generals, follow me out. Let's see how powerful the savage tribe is first." Everyone didn't take off their armors. They walked out of the camp and mounted their horses. Under the lead of Tang Xiaoxi and Tang Zhen, they went straight to the battlefield outside the camp. Along the way, there were demon and human soldiers preparing for war everywhere. Their faces were ashen. It seemed that no one had any good expectations for this battle. In fact, many people here had been starving for many days. Not to mention fighting, it was difficult for them to continue living. Lin Muyu galloped along the way and saw everything. She said, "Give them half of the rations in the Longdan army camp. We can't let the national army and the demon race fight on empty stomachs. Immediately send a letter to Lanyan City. Tell them that the Forest of Infinity is in dire need of rations. No matter what, they must transport rations here. In addition, send a letter to Jean Xiaotang of the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce. Tell her to think of a way to transport as much rations as possible to the Forest of Infinity to supply the Longdan army camp." "Yes, Commander." Wei Chou cupped his fists and then went to order his subordinates. In the distance, the war drums thundered. There was a large open space between the huge coiling Dragon Valley and the Forest of Infinity. At this moment, this open space happened to become the battlefield for both sides. Amidst the beating of the war drums, rows of spearmen from the National Guard Army and the Naga Army fought side by side. Their opponents were a group of giants with crude weapons in their hands. Each of them was nearly 3 meters tall and was incomparably sturdy. Their weapons were stone awls or sharp stones tied to wooden sticks with vines to act as spears. "It can't be." Lin Muyu frowned. "Stone Age." "What Stone Age?" Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes narrowed as she asked. "It's a kind of civilization product." Lin Muyu didn't explain further. Her eyes were fixed on the battlefield. The human and demon armies were already fighting with the barbarian tribe's army. Although they were well equipped, they were no match for the barbarian tribe's army. Accompanied by angry roars, the youths of the barbarian tribe used giant rocks to blast away the charging cavalry. The serpent men were originally very strong, but they were inferior to the barbarian tribe's army. The hissing sounds of the serpent men could be heard in the air as they were thrown away by the barbarian tribe's warriors like grass snakes. "Kill!" In the crowd, a general of the barbarian tribe, who was wearing a tiger skin robe, brandished a dazzling battle axe. With a spin of his body, he created a whirlwind that actually blew a group of human soldiers into the air, causing them to scream miserably. "Heavens!" Wei Chou frowned. "What kind of power is this?" "Who is that?" Lin Muyu asked. Tang Xiaoxi's eyes were gloomy. "The patriarch of the barbarian tribe, also known as the Great Barbarian God. He is extremely strong and unreasonable. At least 100 of our people died under his battle axe. I don't know where he got this Saint-grade battle axe from." "It's actually a Saint-grade," Lin Muyu muttered to herself. "This battle axe must have fallen into the barbarian tribe's territory and been obtained by him. Otherwise, with the barbarian tribe's productivity, it would be impossible for them to forge weapons." Not long after, Tang Jin gave the order for the national army to retreat from the front lines. They were already unable to withstand the attacks of the countless barbarian tribe's warriors and had suffered heavy losses. "Archers, get ready to shoot from afar." Arrows flew into the sky like rain and pierced into the bodies of the barbarian tribe's warriors. Unfortunately, although the barbarian tribe was very powerful, Their equipment was not very good. They didn't even have a shield, so they could only use their flesh and blood to block the arrows. However, their bodies were very strong, so the arrows could only injure them but not kill them. Ao Ao! The injured barbarian tribe warrior roared and grabbed the neck of the National Army soldier with one hand, crushing his head. Blood splattered everywhere as he carried the soldier's body and smashed it. Bang! 7 or 8 soldiers were smashed to the ground. It was a tragic sight. This kind of innate divine strength could be compared to the demon race's armor demons. Commander, do we need reinforcements? Wei Chou narrowed his eyes and said, if we don't, I'm afraid that the National Army's position will be broken. Once these barbarian tribe warriors engage in close combat, our Longdan army camp may not be able to gain any advantage. Lin Muyu nodded. Everyone, change to bows and aim. Shoot their legs and arms so that they can't attack. Yes, do we need to use white drill arrows? No, use ordinary arrows. Yes, this subordinate understands. Thousands of Longdan army camps' heavy cavalry turned into cavalry archers. Under the leadership of Wei Chou, they charged forward and drew their bows and arrows. For a moment, blood splattered everywhere. Under this kind of fierce and intense shooting, the barbarian tribe's attack was instantly blocked. It seemed that the bow and arrows were the best weapon for humans to stop the barbarian tribe. After the drum beat, the patriarch of the barbarian tribe roared, "Retreat! Retreat!" They were afraid. If this continued, the barbarian tribe's army would probably be completely destroyed by the cavalry archers of the Longdan army camp. Don't chase. Lin Muyu raised her arm and gave the order. Everyone stood in place and watched as the barbarian tribe's army slowly left. They even took the injured with them. Mu. Tang Xiaoxi rode over and asked with her beautiful eyes, do you want to take back the barbarian tribe? Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. But the barbarian god calls himself a conqueror. He wants to use his battle axe to conquer the entire eastern continent. I'm afraid he won't be willing to be taken back by you. Don't worry, Xiaoxi. They will. Lin Muyu's clear eyes looked in the direction of Coiling Dragon Valley. She didn't hide the confidence and determination in her eyes. Chapter 421. In the middle of the night, the first batch of food from the Longdan army camp had arrived. It was distributed evenly so that everyone in the army could eat their fill. The Nagas finally restrained the hunger in their eyes when they looked at the human soldiers. In the central tent, the candlelight swayed in the night wind. Everyone was gathered around a simple map of the endless forest. Lin Muyu held a lit candle and carefully looked at the terrain on the map. She said, is it possible for our army of 200,000 to surround the entire Coiling Dragon Valley? The entire Coiling Dragon Valley? Tang Zhen was startled. Commander, the Coiling Dragon Valley isn't small. Tang Xiaoxi smiled with dimples. It's not small, but if the army of 200,000 spreads out, we can indeed surround it so tightly that not even a drop of water can pass through. However, if the great wilderness god leads the barbarian army to break through, I'm afraid that none of our armies will be able to stop him. Yes, of course they will. Lin Muyu thought for a moment and said, we only need to fight and intimidate the morale of the great wilderness god tribe. That way, they won't dare to take half a step out of the Coiling Dragon Valley until they are willing to negotiate with us. Wei Chou smiled. Commander is indeed clear. The great wilderness god tribe definitely doesn't have much food in the Coiling Dragon Valley. They won't be able to hold out for long. Yes. Lin Muyu thought for a moment and said, immediately pass down the order. Situ Sen and Situ Shui will lead the 2nd and 3rd battalions of the Longdan army camp and bring 100 arrow boxes to the southern exit of the Coiling Dragon Valley. Wei Chou will lead the 1st battalion of the Longdan army camp and the National Army to guard the northern exit of the Coiling Dragon Valley. The monster race will guard the mountain range on all sides. Since this great wilderness god tribe dares to set up camp in the valley, then let them suffer the consequences. After surrounding them, provoke them and draw them out to fight. Remember, don't fight them head-on. Use the arrow boxes and arrows to let the great wilderness god tribe suffer a crushing defeat before they can even touch us. Yes, Commander. Prepare supper. You're still eating so late? Tang Xiaoxi pursed her red lips. I'm afraid of getting fat. It's okay, I'll eat. Lin Muyu smiled faintly. After I finish eating, I'm going to explore Coiling Dragon Valley. I want to see how much food the savage tribe has left and how long they can last. Wei Chou hurriedly said, Commander, please reconsider. You're the commander-in-chief of the 3 armies, you can't risk yourself. Don't worry. Lin Muyu said confidently, I know that I might not be able to defeat that great wilderness god, but at least if I want to leave, he won't be able to stop me. I'll go with you. Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes were like water. All right, let's go together. Lin Muyu nodded and smiled. Tang Xiaoxi's strength would double after transforming into 9 tails, and she would be able to help her a lot. After all, she was not familiar with this place, and it was good to have Tang Xiaoxi with her. It was late at night, and 2 steeds left the camp at high speed. Shui Li and Treading Snow, the 2 divine steeds, were very fast, and they were not affected much when they entered the forest. Their iron hooves crossed over thorns and shrubs, bringing Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu to the foot of the mountain outside Coiling Dragon Valley. Both of them changed into black robes and let their steeds graze in the wild. Then they climbed up the cliff. Their movements were as agile as monkeys, and in a few leaps, they had already landed on the peak of the mountain. Wait! Lin Muyu's voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible in the night wind. He raised his arm to signal Tang Xiaoxi to stop, and pointed to the distance. There were 2 giant warriors of the great wilderness tribe sitting there with stone awls in their hands. It turned out that they were the sentries of the great wilderness tribe. Tang Xiaoxi looked at him with her beautiful eyes wide open, asking if he could get rid of these 2 people. Lin Muyu shook his head. He did not want to kill one more person if it was not necessary. He leaped forward, and the whirling fighting light danced above his palm. Pa! It fell on the back of the 2 warriors' heads and knocked them out. Lin Muyu's strength was no longer what it used to be. He could even knock out an armor demon, not to mention the great wilderness tribe, whose skin defense was far inferior to the armor demons. Let's go! Lin Muyu smiled, revealing his white teeth under the moonlight. Tang Xiaoxi held back her laughter and leaped forward with Lin Muyu. The 2 of them were like fairies under the moonlight. Their movements were mysterious and light, and the sound of their landing was so soft that it was almost inaudible. It would not attract anyone's attention. In the valley, the campsites of the great wilderness tribe were connected for several li, and the bonfires were connected. Many barbarian warriors were barbecuing. Black things were hanging on wooden sticks, and some of them were still alive, making GG sounds. What's that? Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu were hiding behind a huge rock, quietly watching the great wilderness tribe rest here. Field mice. Lin Muyu saw it clearly. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but reveal a look of disgust. She would rather die than eat mice. Lin Muyu laughed softly and said, If you are really hungry, having a field mouse to eat is already a heaven-sent delicacy. Xiao Shi, you grew up in a noble family, so of course you don't understand. I understand. The endless forest has been hungry for almost half a year. They dig the soil in the forest, eat the grass, eat the dormant insects, eat the hibernating snakes, and eat the nests of mice. Almost all the edible things in the endless forest have been eaten. We can only hope that the weather will be good this year, and that the grains planted by the fox tribe will have a good harvest. Otherwise, this year will be a disaster for the demon race. Don't worry. Lin Muyu comforted. The Qin Empire has nearly 100 million people, and there is plenty of land. It will not be a problem to feed hundreds of thousands of demon race. Duke Lan is your grandfather, and you have seen that he has done his best for the demon race. Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said, Mu, you can also see that grandfather wants to make up with me. And we are family after all. We can talk about this in the future. Lin Muyu continued to look into the distance and said, The great wilderness tribe's people are so strong. Will they be full just by eating a field mouse? No, look over there. Tang Xiaoxi pointed into the distance and saw several Manhuang tribe warriors working together to carry the carcass of a giant bear into the crowd. Instantly, the surrounding Manhuang tribe warriors cheered. That was the true source of their food. Kill the spirit beasts in Coiling Dragon Valley? Lin Muyu frowned. High-level spirit beasts have always been territorial. Coiling Dragon Valley is not very big, and how many spirit beasts can there be? They have at least tens of thousands of soldiers in the valley, and there is not enough food. As she spoke, Lin Muyu began to focus and increase the insight of the spirit pulse technique. She narrowed her eyes and sensed all the power in the surroundings. Although the wilderness tribe warriors were powerful, their auras were only at the first level of the human realm, so it was easy to distinguish them. However, there were a few extremely powerful forces coming from the mountains in the distance, and they were at least at the level of 600-year spirit beasts. There are spirit beasts indeed. Lin Muyu smiled slightly. Let's go. We will go and get rid of the spirit beasts in the mountains, so that they have nothing to eat. In at most 7 days, the wilderness tribe will take the initiative to ask for peace. Lin Muyu slowly pulled out the dragon spirit sword and flew over the mountain range with Tang Xiaoxi. Soon, they arrived near the aura that the spirit pulse technique had sensed. They saw a cluster of torches burning in the distance, and about 20 wilderness tribe warriors were guarding a cave in front of it. The roars of wild beasts could be heard coming from the cave, and at the same time, there were flashes of fire. Needless to say, the wilderness god was in the cave, and he was the one who killed the wild beasts to provide food for his tribe. Lin Muyu gently held Tang Xiaoxi's shoulder and brought her to hide behind a bush, carefully observing the area in front of them. After a few minutes, the roars of the wild beasts disappeared, and with a rustling sound, the wilderness god walked out step by step with a dazzling battle axe in his hand. In his left hand was the corpse of a huge wild boar. This wild boar was 6,400 years old, and it was as big as a small mountain. Good heavens, this was enough for the wilderness tribe to eat for 2 days. Your Highness is mighty. A group of wilderness tribe warriors knelt on the ground. The wilderness god had thick eyebrows and big eyes, and his entire body was covered with bulging muscles. He looked very satisfied, but suddenly he seemed to have sensed something. With a shout, he turned around and rushed toward Lin Muyu's hiding place. He raised his battle axe, and with a schwa sound, his aura was overbearing. Oh no! Lin Muyu never thought that the wilderness god would be so sensitive to auras. He raised his palm, and the 7 luminaries' immortal gourd appeared in the air. With a dang sound, a golden light burst out, and the wilderness god's battle axe was sent flying back. Pa! Holding the battle axe that was sent flying back, the wilderness god looked at Lin Muyu proudly and said, "Another so-called commander of a human empire. What's your name?" Lin Muyu. What an ugly name. The wilderness god looked at him coldly, then at Tang Xiaoxi, and said, "What do you want by coming to my wilderness tribe's camp? I advise you to surrender." Lin Muyu smiled and said, "If you don't surrender, your tribe will be exterminated here. If you surrender, I can arrange a place for you so you don't have to suffer from hunger." Impudent. The wilderness god's face was full of anger. Who do you think you are? You want my wilderness tribe to surrender? Dream on, hand over your life. Lin Muyu gently pushed Tang Xiaoxi away and said, "Xiaoxi, don't interfere. I want to fight him one-on-one." Bah, one-on-one? The wilderness god's face was full of disdain. With just you? Yes, with just me. Lin Muyu held the dragon spirit sword in front of his chest and smiled. If you lose, surrender, and I will give you enough food to survive. How about it? I need food, but I will never surrender. Heavens, so unyielding. Amidst the howling wind, the wilderness god rushed over like a whirlwind. He didn't cultivate a martial soul, nor did he have battle energy, but the power contained in the battle axe forced Lin Muyu to go all out. Starlight gathered on Lin Muyu's body from the sky, fusing with the power of the stars in his body. The light suddenly exploded. First move, first starlight. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.